Have you ever known exactly what you wanted to say in English, but the moment you opened your mouth, your mind went completely blank? You understood the question, you knew the vocabulary, you even knew the grammar, yet somehow the words refused to come out. Instead, you started translating, hesitating, and watching the conversation move on without you. The truth is, you do not have an English problem. You have a missing bridge between your mind and your spoken English. Until that bridge is built, you'll keep learning new words, studying grammar, and watching English videos, but fluent speaking will always feel just out of reach. But today, everything changes. In this audiobook, I'm going to show you how to build that missing bridge so your thoughts can flow naturally into clear, confident English without translating every sentence. And here's my promise to you. If you stay with me until the very end and actually practice every chapter in this book, you will never think about English speaking the same way again. Your mind will begin creating English instead of searching for it. So before we begin, subscribe to English Mindset Academy, like this video, and comment below. I'm building my English bridge. That one sentence is your commitment to becoming a confident English speaker. Now, let's build the bridge between your mind and fluent English speaking. Chapter 1. Why your mind goes blank even when you know English. There is a painful moment almost every English learner knows. Someone asks you a simple question, and for 1 second you feel ready because you understand exactly what they are asking. The answer already exists inside your mind. You know the idea, you know many of the words, and perhaps you have even studied the grammar needed to form the sentence, but when you open your mouth, everything suddenly disappears. Your mind becomes silent, your confidence drops, and the English that felt clear only seconds ago becomes impossible to reach. You begin searching for the first word, translating the idea from your own language, checking the grammar before the sentence has even started, and worrying about what the listener might think. By the time you finally speak, the answer comes out slowly, weakly, or not at all. This experience can make you believe that you do not know enough English, but that is often not the real problem. You may know much more English than you can currently speak. Your vocabulary may be larger than the vocabulary that appears during conversation. Your grammar may be stronger than the grammar you use under pressure. Your listening ability may allow you to understand full conversations, yet your speaking ability may still feel trapped. The knowledge is inside you, but there is no strong path carrying that knowledge from your mind to your mouth. That missing path is the English thought bridge. Imagine that your thoughts are standing on one side of a deep river and your spoken English is standing on the other side. Your ideas may be intelligent, emotional, clear, and complete in your first language, but when you try to move them across the river into English, there is no stable bridge. Some thoughts fall into translation, some become trapped inside grammar, some are stopped by fear, some reach the other side but they arrive broken and incomplete. This is why you may feel like a confident and expressive person in your own language but suddenly feel smaller when you speak English. Your personality has not disappeared, your intelligence has not disappeared, your bridge is simply not strong enough yet. Many learners react to this problem by collecting more information. They download more vocabulary lists, watch more grammar lessons, save more useful phrases, and write hundreds of words in notebooks. Learning more can certainly help, but more knowledge does not automatically create fluent speaking. You can own thousands of bricks without having a bridge. Vocabulary gives you the bricks, grammar gives you the rules for placing them, and pronunciation gives your sentences sound, but you still need a mental system that carries a thought from the moment it appears inside you to the moment it becomes spoken English. Without that system, you may continue understanding more while still struggling to speak. The first reason your mind goes blank is that you are trying to perform too many jobs at once. When someone speaks to you, your brain must understand the question, decide what you think, choose the correct words, organize those words into a sentence, control grammar, pronounce everything clearly, watch the listener's reaction, and prepare the next sentence before the first one has finished. At the same time, you may be translating, correcting yourself, remembering an old grammar rule, and fighting the fear of making a mistake. This is not one task. It is many difficult tasks happening together, and when the pressure becomes too heavy, your brain protects itself by stopping. Think about a computer with too many programs open at the same time. One program is translation, another is grammar, another is pronunciation, another is vocabulary, another is fear, and another is the conversation itself. Eventually, the system becomes slow or freezes completely. Your mind is not empty in that moment, it is overloaded. This is an important difference because an empty mind needs more knowledge, but an overloaded mind needs a simpler process. You do not always need more English before you speak. Sometimes you need fewer mental jobs while you are speaking. The second reason your mind goes blank is that you are trying to build the entire sentence before saying the first word. You want the beginning, middle, and ending to be correct before you open your mouth. You silently prepare, change a word, move the sentence, check the tense, and search for a better expression. While you are doing this, the pressure increases because the listener is waiting. Then you begin thinking about the silence itself. You wonder whether you are taking too long, and that fear creates even more delay. A sentence that could have started simply becomes trapped inside the search for perfection. Fluent speakers usually do not build an entire paragraph before they begin. They start with a simple direction and develop the idea while speaking. They may begin with, "I believe the main problem is," or "from my experience," or "the reason is." These opening patterns give the thought somewhere to go. They do not wait until every word is perfect. They begin with a clear path and allow the next sentence to grow from the first one. This is one of the hidden secrets of fluent speaking. Movement creates more language, but silence filled with perfectionism creates more fear. The third reason your mind goes blank is translation. Translation feels safe because your first language is strong and familiar. When you want to speak, your mind naturally creates the complete thought in the language it trusts most. Then it tries to move that thought word by word into English. The problem is that languages do not organize ideas in exactly the same way. The sentence order may change, the expression may not exist directly, and one word in your language may need an entire phrase in English. While your brain is solving all these problems, the conversation continues, and you feel as if English is moving faster than you can follow. Translation is not always wrong, especially during the early stages of learning, but depending on it for every sentence creates a weak bridge. Instead of moving thought directly into English, your brain takes a long road. The thought begins in your first language, enters a translation room, waits for grammar correction, passes through vocabulary search, and only then reaches your mouth. This long process creates pauses and hesitation. The goal of the English thought bridge is to build a shorter road so a simple idea can move directly into simple English without passing through every stage of translation. For example, imagine someone asks, "What do you usually do in the evening?" If you translate, you may first create a detailed answer in your own language, then search for the correct English tense, then worry about words like usually, relax, dinner, or free time. But if you use direct English thinking, you can begin with a simple frame. In the evening, I usually, that frame opens the bridge. You may continue, in the evening, I usually have dinner with my family, watch something for a while, and prepare for the next day. The answer does not need to be perfect or impressive, it only needs to move. The fourth reason your mind goes blank is fear. Fear does not only affect your emotions, it affects your access to language. When you are calm, words feel easier to remember. When you feel watched or judged, even simple vocabulary can disappear. You may remember the word 5 minutes after the conversation, and this can be extremely frustrating because it proves the word was inside you. The word was not missing. Fear temporarily blocked the road leading to it. Many learners enter conversations with one hidden goal: do not make a mistake. This goal sounds reasonable, but it creates the wrong type of attention. Instead of focusing on meaning, you focus on danger. Every sentence becomes a test. Every word feels risky. Every pause feels embarrassing. Your brain begins checking itself so aggressively that it loses the natural flow needed for communication. The more you try to protect yourself from mistakes, the harder it becomes to speak. A stronger goal is not, "I must speak without mistakes." A stronger goal is, "I must deliver one clear idea." This change is powerful because communication gives your brain direction while perfection gives your brain pressure. If your first sentence has a small grammar mistake but the listener understands you, the bridge has worked. You can correct the mistake later. But if you remain silent because you are waiting for perfection, no communication happens and the bridge remains unused. The fifth reason your mind goes blank is that much of your English is passive. Passive English is language you recognize but cannot quickly produce. You may understand a word while reading, recognize a phrase in a video, and know the meaning when someone else uses it. But during conversation, you cannot bring it out fast enough. This is not unusual. Recognition is easier than production. When you hear a word, the word is already in front of you. When you speak, your brain must find the word without help. This explains why you can watch English content and understand it, but still struggle to speak. Listening practice fills your mind with language, but speaking practice teaches your mind how to retrieve that language. These are related but different skills. You cannot build speaking ability only by receiving English. At some point, you must practice sending English out. The bridge becomes stronger through use. Every time you create a sentence with a word, that word becomes easier to retrieve. Every time you speak a phrase aloud, your mouth becomes more familiar with it. Every time you answer a question without reading, the path between thought and speech becomes stronger. A word you have only seen may feel distant, but a word you have used in 10 personal sentences begins to feel available. This is why active practice is not optional. It is the construction work that builds the bridge. The sixth reason your mind goes blank is that your thoughts may be too large for your current English. In your own language, you can express complex opinions, deep emotions, and detailed stories. When you try to transfer that same level of thought into English, the idea may become too heavy for your available vocabulary and sentence control. You want to express everything exactly, so you reject every simple sentence that comes to mind. This creates silence. You must learn to reduce a large thought into smaller English pieces. This does not make your intelligence smaller, it makes your communication clearer. If you want to explain a complicated opinion, begin with the simplest truth. Then add one reason. Then add one example. Your thought can cross the bridge in several smaller steps instead of trying to cross as one enormous sentence. Suppose you want to explain why learning English has been emotionally difficult. You may have a deep thought about confidence, comparison, fear, and missed opportunities. Do not try to place all of that into the first sentence. Begin with, "Learning English has been challenging for me." Then continue, "The main reason is that I understand more than I can speak." Then add, "For example, I often know the answer, but I become nervous and forget the words." Finally finish with, "That is why I am training myself to speak more calmly and directly." The idea becomes powerful because it moves in clear steps. The seventh reason your mind goes blank is that you have trained English mainly as information instead of action. You may have spent years choosing correct answers, completing grammar exercises, reading definitions, and watching explanations. These activities can build valuable knowledge, but real conversation asks you to create language without seeing the answer first. If your practice has always given you the words, your brain may struggle when it must produce them alone. Speaking is a performance skill. A person cannot learn swimming only by reading about water, and a person cannot learn speaking only by studying sentences silently. At some point, the body must enter the water. At some point, your mouth must create English without the safety of a written answer. This may feel uncomfortable, but discomfort is not a sign that you are failing. It is a sign that you are finally training the exact skill you want to improve. The first time you answer a question without preparation, you may pause. The second time, you may still hesitate. The 10th time, the structure begins to feel familiar. After many repetitions, your brain stops treating the question like an emergency. It begins recognizing a pattern. This is how automatic speaking develops. It is not created by one magical lesson. It is created when the same mental path is used often enough that the brain no longer needs to search for it. This chapter is not asking you to ignore vocabulary, grammar, or pronunciation. These skills are important. It is teaching you that those skills need a bridge. Vocabulary without retrieval remains passive. Grammar without speaking remains theoretical. Pronunciation without real sentences remains isolated. The bridge connects everything. It organizes your knowledge into usable speech. From today, when your mind goes blank, do not tell yourself, "I know nothing." That sentence is not true and it makes the fear stronger. Tell yourself, "My mind is overloaded, so I need one simple starting point." Then say something basic. You can begin with, "I think the main reason is," or "from my experience," or "the first thing I want to say is." The opening does not need to be perfect. It only needs to create movement. If you forget a word, do not immediately stop. Describe it with words you already know. If you forget exhausted, say very tired. If you forget appointment, say a planned meeting. If you forget improve, say make it better. The perfect word may be missing, but communication can continue. A strong bridge does not depend on one word. It gives your thought another road. If your sentence becomes confusing, do not panic. Say, "Let me explain that again," or "What I mean is." These phrases are powerful because they keep the bridge open. Strong speakers do not always speak perfectly the first time. They know how to repair meaning. The ability to continue is more valuable than the ability to avoid every mistake. You must also stop judging your entire English ability by one difficult conversation. A tired mind may speak poorly. A stressful situation may block words. An unfamiliar topic may create hesitation. These moments do not define your complete level. Your English is not one performance. It is a skill being built over time. Every difficult conversation reveals where the bridge needs more support. Begin practicing with small thoughts. Look around your room and say what you see. Describe what you did today. Explain one opinion. Answer one simple question. Do not search for advanced words. Focus on moving the thought into English. If your answer is simple but clear, the practice is successful. You might ask yourself, "What was the best part of my day?" Then answer, "The best part of my day was finishing my work early because it gave me time to relax." This is not a complicated sentence, but it connects thought, reason, and speech. Ask, "What do I want to improve?" Answer, "I want to improve my speaking because I often understand English but hesitate during conversations." Every answer is another piece of the bridge. Record yourself for 1 minute and listen without attacking yourself. Do not only search for mistakes, search for movement. Did you communicate the main idea? Did you continue after a pause? Did you explain something clearly? These are signs of progress. Grammar can be corrected, vocabulary can be expanded, and pronunciation can be refined. But first you must build the courage and structure to keep language moving. As the bridge becomes stronger, the blank moments will not disappear instantly, but they will become shorter. Instead of remaining silent for 10 seconds, you may begin after 3 seconds. Instead of stopping completely after forgetting a word, you will explain it differently. Instead of translating the whole answer, you will begin with a direct English phrase. These small changes are the real beginning of fluency. Fluency does not mean your mind never pauses. It means your mind knows how to continue. Fluency does not mean you always find the perfect word. It means you can express the idea with the words available. Fluency does not mean you never make mistakes. It means mistakes no longer destroy the conversation. This is the type of fluency the English thought bridge will help you build. Remember this golden truth: your mind does not go blank because you have no thoughts and no English. It goes blank because too much pressure is trying to pass through a bridge that has not been trained enough. The solution is not shame. The solution is construction. You will build the bridge through clear thoughts, direct English patterns, simple sentence movement, active vocabulary, calm repetition, and real speaking practice. Your ideas are already waiting. Your English is already growing. Now you must connect them. Do not wait until your bridge is perfect before you cross it. Every time you cross, the bridge becomes stronger. Every sentence adds another piece. Every mistake teaches you where support is needed. Every conversation proves that your thoughts can reach the other side. The moment you understand this, your speaking journey changes. You stop believing that your mind is empty. You stop treating every pause like failure. You stop waiting for perfect English before communicating. You begin building, speaking, repairing, and continuing. That is how the missing bridge begins to appear. And once that bridge becomes strong, the English trapped inside your mind will finally have a clear road into your voice. Chapter 2. Build thoughts first, then build English. Most English learners believe that speaking begins with vocabulary, but fluent speaking actually begins one step earlier. It begins with a clear thought. Before your mouth can produce a strong English sentence, your mind must know exactly what it wants to communicate. When the thought is unclear, the sentence becomes confused. When the thought is too large, the sentence becomes heavy. When several thoughts arrive at the same time, your English becomes broken. This is why the second part of the English thought bridge is not about searching for more words. It is about training your mind to create clear, manageable thoughts that English can carry easily. Many learners blame grammar when their sentences become messy, but sometimes grammar is not the real problem. Their mind is trying to express 5 different ideas inside one sentence. They begin talking about one subject, suddenly remember another detail, add an emotion, try to explain a reason, and then search for an example before the first idea has been completed. Their mouth cannot follow everything happening inside their mind, so the sentence loses direction. The learner stops, repeats words, changes grammar halfway through, and finally feels that their English is weak. In reality, the thought was not prepared for speech. Imagine trying to carry a large table across a narrow bridge. The bridge may be strong, but the table is too wide. You cannot move it easily because it does not fit. The solution is not always to build a completely new bridge. Sometimes you must take the table apart and carry it in smaller pieces. Your thoughts work in the same way. A complex idea may be too large to move into English as one sentence. You must divide it into smaller thoughts, carry each thought across, and then connect them on the other side. Suppose someone asks you, why do you want to improve your English? Inside your mind, you may have many answers. You want a better job. You want to communicate while traveling. You want to understand books, videos, and courses. You want to feel confident. You want to prove something to yourself. All these thoughts may arrive together, and you may try to say everything immediately. You begin, I want English because job and future, and I watch many videos, but speaking problem and when travel also. The answer becomes confused because your mind did not choose one starting thought. A stronger speaker first selects the main idea. You might decide, my main reason is confidence. Now your first sentence becomes clear. I want to improve my English because I want to communicate with more confidence. After this sentence crosses the bridge, you can carry the next thought. I often understand what people say, but I struggle to express my own ideas quickly. Then you can add an example. For example, during conversations, I sometimes know the answer but cannot build the sentence in time. Finally, you can finish. That is why speaking confidently is one of my biggest goals. The answer becomes powerful because each thought moved separately and clearly. This is the first golden principle of this chapter. Do not begin by building English words. Begin by choosing the thought you want those words to carry. Your mind produces ideas faster than your mouth can speak. In your first language, this does not always cause a problem because your mental connection is already strong. You have spent years turning thoughts into that language. Your brain knows thousands of patterns automatically. But in English, the bridge is still developing. If too many ideas attempt to cross at once, your brain becomes overloaded. This is why clear thinking is not only an intellectual skill, it is a fluency skill. A clear thought answers one simple question: what is the main thing I want the listener to understand? Before you answer, give yourself one quiet second and ask this question. You do not need to plan the entire response. You only need to identify the first clear idea. If someone asks, what is your biggest challenge in English? Your main thought may be, I translate too much. If someone asks, how do you practice English? Your main thought may be, I practice by speaking aloud. If someone asks, why is confidence important? Your main thought may be, confidence helps people continue after mistakes. Once the first thought is clear, English has somewhere to begin. Many learners are afraid of pausing for 1 second because they believe a pause makes them look weak. But a short thinking pause can make your answer much stronger. 1 calm second before speaking is better than 10 confused seconds after starting. You can even use natural phrases to create thinking time, such as, the main thing for me is, from my experience, I would say, or the biggest reason is. These phrases are not empty. They open the bridge while your mind prepares the next thought. The problem begins when learners try to think about exact English words before they understand the meaning they want to express. They ask, which advanced word should I use, before asking, what do I really mean? This creates unnatural English because word choice becomes more important than communication. A powerful speaker works in the opposite direction. First, they understand the meaning. Then they choose the simplest words that can carry it clearly. For example, imagine you want to explain that a learning method helped you. If you start by searching for an advanced word, you may become stuck between beneficial, efficient, effective, or productive. But if you first clarify the thought, the correct word becomes easier. Did the method give good results? Then effective may fit. Did it save time and effort? Then efficient may fit. Could you use it easily in real life? Then practical may fit. Clear thinking creates accurate vocabulary. This is why vocabulary does not work separately from thought. The better you understand your idea, the easier it becomes to choose the right word. If your meaning is unclear, even a large vocabulary can create confusion. You may know 10 possible words but not know which one belongs in the sentence. The real skill is not knowing every word. The real skill is matching one clear word to one clear thought. Another major problem is that learners often try to speak in complete paragraphs instead of thought units. A thought unit is one small piece of meaning. It may be a main point, a reason, a detail, an example, a contrast, or a conclusion. Fluent speaking is usually built from several thought units connected together. When you learn to speak in these units, your English becomes easier to control. Consider this answer: learning English has changed my life because it has helped me understand more information, communicate with different people, and feel more confident about my future. This is a good sentence, but if it feels too difficult, divide it into thought units. Learning English has changed my life. It helps me understand more information. It also helps me communicate with different people. Most importantly, it makes me feel more confident about my future. The meaning remains strong, but the delivery becomes easier. Some learners reject these shorter thought units because they want to sound advanced. They believe fluent people always use long sentences. This is not true. Fluent speakers use a mixture of short, medium, and long sentences. Their strength comes from control, not length. A clear, short sentence can sound much more intelligent than a long sentence that loses direction. The English thought bridge becomes stronger when you learn to send one thought at a time. Main thought first, supporting thought second, example third, final thought last. This rhythm reduces mental pressure because you no longer need to hold the entire answer inside your mind. You only need to carry the next piece. Think about a person crossing a river using stepping stones. They do not jump from the first side directly to the other side. They place one foot on the first stone, then the second, then the third. Each stone gives stability. Thought units are the stepping stones of spoken English. If you try to jump over the whole river, you may fall. If you move step by step, the journey becomes manageable. Let us take another common question. Do you think social media is useful for learning English? A learner may have many thoughts. Videos are helpful, short content can be distracting, comments provide practice, some information is incorrect, and too much scrolling wastes time. If all these thoughts enter at once, the answer becomes messy. Instead, choose one main position. Social media can be useful if learners use it with purpose. This becomes the first thought. Then add a reason. It gives learners quick access to videos, explanations, and real English. Then add balance. However, random scrolling can waste time. Then give an example. For example, watching one short pronunciation lesson and repeating it is useful, but watching dozens of unrelated clips is not real practice. Finally, conclude. So social media helps when you control it instead of letting it control you. Notice how the answer grows. It was not created as one complete paragraph inside the mind. It was built thought by thought. This is how you should train yourself to speak. Do not wait for the entire answer to arrive. Begin with the first clear idea and allow the next idea to follow naturally. Another important part of building thoughts is separating facts, opinions, and emotions. Learners often mix these three inside one sentence. A fact describes what happened. An opinion explains what you think about it. An emotion explains how it made you feel. If you separate them, your English becomes clearer. For example, imagine you attended an English class. The fact is, the class lasted 2 hours and focused on speaking practice. Your opinion is, I think the lesson was practical because we used real conversation questions. Your emotion is, I felt nervous at first, but later I became more comfortable. If you try to say everything together without order, the sentence may become confusing. If you separate the thought types, your story becomes easy to follow. This method is especially powerful when telling personal stories. Many learners get lost because memories do not arrive in perfect order. They remember the ending, then the beginning, then an emotion, then a detail. Before speaking, choose a simple sequence: what happened, why it mattered, how you felt, and what you learned. This sequence gives the story a bridge. Suppose you want to describe your first English conversation. Begin with what happened. My first real English conversation happened with a tourist. Add the challenge. I understood his question, but I was afraid to answer. Add the action. I used simple words and explained the direction slowly. Add the emotion. At first I felt nervous, but afterward I felt proud. Add the lesson. That experience taught me that communication is possible even when my English is not perfect. This story sounds natural because the thoughts have order. A thought does not need to be advanced to be powerful. The most powerful thoughts are often simple and honest. I was afraid, but I tried. I made mistakes, but the person understood me. I spoke slowly, but I completed the conversation. These sentences connect because the meaning is clear. You do not need advanced grammar to express real growth. Another major speaking weakness comes from changing the main thought too quickly. You begin answering one question, then another related idea attracts your attention, and suddenly you leave the original road. The listener may understand individual sentences but cannot see how they connect. This happens because your mind follows every new thought instead of protecting the main thought. Imagine the main thought is the center of a circle. Every supporting sentence should stay connected to that center. Before adding a sentence, ask, does this support my main idea? If yes, continue. If not, save it for later. This discipline makes your speaking sound focused. For example, if your main point is, daily speaking practice builds confidence, you can discuss repetition, fear, mistakes, and small conversations because these ideas support the point. But if you suddenly begin explaining spelling rules, your answer loses focus. Spelling may be important, but it belongs to another conversation. Strong speakers do not say everything they know. They choose what serves the current idea. This is why speaking clearly is partly the art of leaving things out. You may have 10 thoughts, but the listener may only need 3. More information does not always create better communication. Sometimes it creates more confusion. A clear speaker selects the strongest idea, the most useful reason, and the clearest example. This selection gives English power. Many learners also experience confusion because their inner thought is emotional rather than verbal. They know how they feel, but the feeling has not yet become a clear idea. For example, you may feel uncomfortable about speaking English, but you do not know exactly why. Is it fear of mistakes? Is it slow sentence building? Is it pronunciation insecurity? Is it comparison with others? Until the emotion becomes a clear thought, the English sentence will remain general. You may only say, I do not feel good when speaking English. This is understandable, but unclear. If you examine the thought, you may discover, I feel anxious because I am afraid people will judge my pronunciation. Now your sentence becomes more precise. Another learner may discover, I feel frustrated because my thoughts move faster than my English. These are stronger sentences because clear thinking revealed the real emotion. This is why self-awareness improves English speaking. The more clearly you understand your own experiences, goals, opinions, and emotions, the easier it becomes to express them. English is the vehicle, but thought is the driver. A strong vehicle without a driver has no direction. Strong vocabulary without clear thinking has the same problem. To train this skill, begin with simple thought questions. Before speaking, ask yourself, what happened? What do I think? Why do I think it? How did I feel? What example can I give? What is the final message? These questions organize your mind. You will not always use every question, but they help turn a cloud of ideas into a clear speaking path. Let us apply this to the question, what makes a good English teacher? First ask, what do I think? Your answer may be, a good English teacher makes learners feel comfortable speaking. Why? Because fear prevents learners from using what they know. Example? For example, when a teacher corrects mistakes kindly, students keep talking instead of becoming silent. Final message? That is why emotional safety is as important as grammar knowledge. This becomes a strong answer because each thought has a purpose. Now consider the question, what is the best way to remember vocabulary? Your main thought may be, the best way is to use words in personal sentences. Reason. Personal meaning helps the brain remember. Example. If you learn the word determined, say, I am determined to improve my English. Final thought. Words become easier to remember when they connect to your own life. Again, the answer is built from thought, not from random vocabulary. Another key principle is learning to reduce an unclear thought into a simple sentence frame. Sentence frames are not cages, they are temporary supports. They give your thought a structure while the bridge is becoming stronger. Useful frames include, I believe because, the main reason is, from my experience. A good example is, the problem is not, The problem is, and what I have learned is, suppose your thought feels complicated. You want to say that learners should not wait for confidence before practicing. Use the frame, I believe because. Now the thought becomes, I believe learners should speak before they feel confident because confidence grows through action. The frame helped organize the thought. You can then expand it. For example, a learner who answers one question every day will slowly become less afraid. Now the idea is complete. Some learners worry that sentence frames will make them sound repetitive. At first, repetition is not a problem. Repetition builds automatic structure. A musician repeats scales. An athlete repeats basic movements. An English learner must repeat thinking patterns. Later, when the patterns become natural, you can vary them. But first, your mind needs reliable roads. This is why you should practice the same thought in several forms. Take one idea. Mistakes help learners improve. Say it differently. Learners improve when they study their mistakes. Say it another way. A mistake becomes useful when you correct it. Say it more personally. My mistakes show me what I need to practice. This exercise strengthens the bridge because one thought learns several English roots. If one root disappears during conversation, another root remains available. You may forget the word improve, but you can say get better. You may forget essential, but you can say very important. You may forget hesitation, but you can say long pauses. Thought flexibility protects communication. Your goal is not to depend on one perfect sentence. Your goal is to express the same idea in more than one way. This is a hidden power of fluent speakers. They do not always remember the first word they want. They simply choose another route. If the direct bridge is blocked, they use a side bridge. Learners often freeze because they believe only one correct sentence can express the thought. Fluent speakers understand that meaning can travel through many sentences. Suppose you want to say, I became overwhelmed by the amount of vocabulary. If you forget overwhelmed, you can say, there were too many words and I felt I could not manage them. The idea survives. Suppose you forget consistent. You can say, I practice regularly without stopping. The listener still understands. This skill is called paraphrasing, but at a deeper level, it is thought protection. The thought matters more than the perfect word. Another reason thought-first speaking is powerful is that it reduces fear. When your goal is to produce a perfect sentence, every missing word feels like failure. When your goal is to deliver a clear thought, you become more flexible. You can simplify, explain, give an example, or try another sentence. Communication remains alive. This changes your inner voice during speaking. Instead of thinking, I must find the perfect word, you think, how else can I express this thought? Instead of thinking, my sentence is wrong, you think, is my meaning clear? Instead of thinking, I am failing, you think, I am building the bridge. These mental changes create calmer English. Building thoughts also requires learning to think at the level of your current English. This does not mean making your thoughts childish. It means expressing complex ideas through simple steps. A learner may want to discuss how technology changes communication, but their English level may not support a long academic sentence. They can still express the idea clearly. Technology makes communication faster. People can speak across long distances immediately. However, online communication can sometimes feel less personal, so technology connects people, but it can also change the quality of relationships. This is thoughtful English built from manageable sentences. Never confuse simplicity with weakness. Simple English can carry deep meaning when the thought is organized. People do not always leave because they stop caring. Sometimes they leave because staying causes too much pain. The words are simple, but the thought is strong. Confidence does not come before action. It grows because of action. Again, simple words, powerful meaning. Many advanced learners struggle because they reject simple sentences too early. They want every answer to sound sophisticated. This desire makes their speaking heavy. They should first establish clarity, then add complexity where it helps. A bridge must be stable before you carry heavier language across it. Another useful method is the three-level thought system. Start with a basic thought, strengthen it with a reason, and deepen it with an example or result. For instance, basic thought. Speaking practice is important. Stronger thought. Speaking practice is important because it activates the English you already know. Deeper thought. For example, a word may remain passive for months, but after you use it in several conversations, it becomes easier to recall. This three-level system helps you expand without getting lost. Let us use another topic. Basic thought. Comparing yourself with others is harmful. Stronger thought. Comparing yourself with others is harmful because every learner has a different background and learning speed. Deeper thought. For example, someone who has studied English for 10 years will naturally speak differently from a beginner, so comparison can destroy motivation instead of creating progress. This answer becomes meaningful because each level develops the thought. You can use this system in conversations, interviews, presentations, and exams. When someone asks a question, do not search for a long answer. Build it in levels: statement, reason, example. This is easier for your brain and clearer for your listener. Another challenge is learning to handle unexpected questions. Your mind goes blank because the topic was not prepared. The solution is not memorizing answers to every possible question. The solution is having universal thought patterns. Almost every answer can begin with an opinion, reason, experience, comparison, problem, solution, or example. When the topic changes, the mental structure stays familiar. If someone asks, should children use smartphones? Begin with an opinion. I think children should use smartphones with limits. Add a reason. The reason is that smartphones can support learning, but too much use can affect attention. Add an example. For example, educational videos can be useful, while endless gaming may waste time. Finish. So guidance and balance are more important than complete prohibition. You did not memorize this entire answer. You used a familiar thought structure. If someone asks, is working from home better? Begin with balance. Working from home has advantages, but it is not perfect for everyone. Add reasons and examples. The topic is different, but the bridge is the same. Thought patterns give you adaptability. You should also learn to separate the first draft of a thought from the improved version. Your first spoken sentence does not need to be your final sentence. You can begin simply and then clarify. For example, I think online learning is good. More specifically, it is useful because people can study from anywhere. The first sentence starts the movement. The second sentence improves the meaning. This is much better than waiting silently for the perfect sentence. Speaking is often a process of refinement. You begin, notice what you mean more clearly, and add another sentence. Phrases like "what I mean is," to be more specific, "the main point is," and "let me explain that more clearly," allow your thought to develop naturally. Fluent speakers use these phrases because human thinking is not always complete before speech begins. Sometimes speaking helps clarify thought. The goal is not to sound perfect from the first word. The goal is to guide the listener as the meaning becomes clearer. Another important skill is building English thoughts from images, situations, and feelings rather than translating sentences. Look at a cup on your table. Do not ask, "What sentence would I say about this in my language?" Ask simple English questions. What is it? Where is it? What do I use it for? Then speak. This is my coffee cup. It is beside my laptop. I use it every morning while working. You created English directly from the situation. Look outside. The weather is cloudy. The road looks wet. It probably rained earlier. Again, the thought moved directly from observation into English. This is how you begin weakening the translation habit. You connect reality to English, not reality to your first language and then to English. You can do the same with emotions. When you feel tired, think, "I feel tired because I did not sleep well." When you feel motivated, think, "I feel motivated because I completed my practice today." These small direct thoughts are daily construction work for the bridge. Do not underestimate simple self-talk. It may feel too basic, but it teaches your mind that English can begin directly from experience. You are not performing for anyone, you are training the connection. Over time, the direct route becomes more familiar. Another powerful exercise is one thought, 1 minute. Choose one simple idea and speak about it for 1 minute without changing the topic. For example, choose "why I want confidence." Start with your main thought, give a reason, add a personal example, and finish. If you run out of words, repeat the idea in a new way rather than jumping to another topic. This trains focus and flexibility. You might say, "I want more confidence because I often hesitate during English conversations. I know many words, but fear stops me from using them." For example, when someone asks me a question unexpectedly, I sometimes give a very short answer, even though I have more ideas. I believe daily speaking practice will help because every answer teaches my brain to stay calm. That is why confidence is one of my main English goals. This is a complete 1-minute answer built from one thought. Another exercise is thought reduction. Take a large topic and reduce it to one sentence. Topic: success in English. One sentence. Success in English comes from consistent practice, not occasional motivation. Topic: fear of mistakes. One sentence. Fear becomes weaker when you continue speaking after a mistake. Topic: vocabulary. One sentence. Vocabulary becomes useful only when you can retrieve it during communication. This exercise trains your mind to find the heart of an idea. Then use thought expansion. Take that one sentence and add a reason, example, and conclusion. Reduction gives clarity. Expansion gives fluency. Together, they train the complete bridge. You should also practice thought ordering. Write 4 ideas on paper and arrange them in the clearest order. For example, I became more confident. I started recording my voice. At first, I hated hearing myself. I noticed my pronunciation improved. The clear order is, I started recording my voice. At first, I hated hearing myself, but I continued and noticed my pronunciation improved. As a result, I became more confident. This activity trains the same mental organization needed in speaking. Eventually, you should do it without writing. Hear a question, identify the order, and speak. At first, written practice helps make the thinking visible. Later, the process becomes faster and more automatic. Another hidden problem is the desire to sound exactly like someone else. Learners copy advanced expressions without connecting them to their own thoughts. The phrases may sound impressive, but because they do not belong to the learner's real experience, they are difficult to use naturally. Your English becomes stronger when the language reflects your own thinking. Learn useful phrases, but fill them with personal meaning. Instead of memorizing in today's rapidly evolving world, for every answer, say what you genuinely think. Technology changes quickly, so people need to keep learning. The second sentence may be simpler, but it is easier to control and more natural. Your goal is not to borrow another person's voice forever. Your goal is to build an English bridge strong enough to carry your own voice. This is why the English Thought Bridge is different from a vocabulary book. It does not ask you to fill your mind with impressive language before you can speak. It teaches you to take the thoughts already inside you and move them through English clearly. Your ideas, experiences, opinions, and emotions become the material. English becomes the structure that carries them. From today, stop asking only, what English sentence should I say? Begin asking, what thought am I trying to communicate? Once the thought becomes clear, reduce it to one simple sentence, then add another thought only when the first one is complete. This habit will change the rhythm of your speaking. When someone asks a question, do not open every door in your mind. Choose one door, walk through it. Explain what is inside, give one example, then close the answer clearly. This is controlled communication. Remember that confusion often begins before the first word. If the thought is moving in 10 directions, the English will follow. If the thought has one clear path, the English becomes easier. This is why thought training is speaking training. You may still make grammar mistakes. You may still forget vocabulary. You may still pause, but when your main thought is clear, you can recover. You know what you are trying to say, so you can find another way to express it. When the thought itself is unclear, recovery becomes much harder because you do not know the destination. A clear destination allows many roads. If your destination is daily practice creates confidence, you can say daily practice builds confidence. Practicing every day makes you more confident, or you become more confident when you practice regularly. The words change, but the thought remains stable. That stability is the foundation of fluent speaking. At the end of this chapter, understand this golden truth. Fluent English is not created by throwing more words into your mind. It is created by building a reliable connection between clear thoughts and usable English. Your mouth cannot organize what your mind has not organized. Your vocabulary cannot express a meaning you have not identified. Your grammar cannot save a thought that is trying to move in 5 directions. Build the thought first. Choose one main idea, reduce it to a clear sentence, add one reason, give one example. Connect the next thought only after the first one is complete. If the perfect word disappears, protect the thought by using simpler language. If the sentence becomes unclear, rephrase it. If the idea feels too large, divide it into smaller pieces. Do this again and again until your mind learns a new habit. Instead of creating one complicated thought in your first language and forcing it into English, your brain will begin producing smaller English thoughts directly. One clear idea will lead to another. One sentence will open the road for the next. Speaking will begin to feel less like translation and more like construction. You are not trying to push your entire mind across the bridge in one moment. You are learning to carry your thoughts one clear piece at a time. Every clear thought strengthens the bridge. Every simple sentence strengthens the bridge. Every reason, example, and rephrased idea strengthens the bridge. One day, you will notice that your thoughts no longer wait helplessly on one side. They will begin moving naturally toward English. Your mind will choose a clear idea, your mouth will give it words, and the next thought will follow without panic. That is when English begins to feel less like something you are translating and more like something you are truly thinking. And that is the moment the missing bridge starts becoming a real road to fluency. Chapter 3. Stop translating and create direct English thinking. For many English learners, translation feels like the safest road to speaking. A thought appears in the first language, the mind turns it into a complete sentence, and then the learner searches for matching English words. This method may work when there is plenty of time, but real conversation rarely waits. People ask questions suddenly, ideas change quickly, and answers must be produced while the discussion is still moving. By the time the learner has created the sentence, translated every part, checked the grammar, and prepared the pronunciation, the natural moment to speak has already passed. Confidence falls, hesitation increases, and the learner begins believing that fluent English is impossible. The problem is not that translation is always wrong. Translation can help you understand new vocabulary, compare meanings, and learn difficult ideas. The problem begins when translation becomes the only bridge between your thoughts and English. If every sentence must first pass through another language, speaking will always carry an extra mental burden. Your brain is not completing one job, it is completing several jobs before your mouth can produce the first word. It chooses the thought, creates it in the first language, searches for English words, changes the sentence order, checks the grammar, and then prepares the sounds. Under pressure, that long process becomes too heavy and the bridge closes. Direct English thinking creates a shorter and stronger path. Instead of building a complete thought in your first language and forcing it into English, you learn to connect simple ideas, images, emotions, and situations directly to English words and sentence patterns. You see the rain and think it is raining heavily. You feel tired and think I need some rest. You remember an appointment and think I must leave before 3. You do not need to create these thoughts in another language first. The situation itself produces the English. This direct connection may feel unnatural in the beginning because your first language has had many years of practice. Every object, feeling, memory, and situation already has a fast road to that language. English has fewer roads, and some of them are still narrow. The goal is not to destroy your first language or force yourself never to translate again. The goal is to build enough direct English roads that translation is no longer necessary for every small thought. You must begin with simple thoughts because direct thinking grows through success, not pressure. Many learners make the mistake of trying to discuss philosophy, business, politics, or complicated personal experiences directly in English before they can describe ordinary daily life comfortably. They become frustrated because the thoughts are too heavy for the bridge they are building. A stronger method begins with the world around you. Describe what you see, what you are doing, what you need, what you feel, and what you plan to do next. These small thoughts are the foundation of direct English thinking. When you wake up, think, I feel sleepy, but I need to get up. While preparing breakfast, think, I am making tea, or I need something quick to eat. When you open your computer, think, I have several tasks to finish today. When you leave your home, think, the weather looks warm, or the street is quieter than usual. These sentences may look simple, but they are powerful because they teach your brain to connect real life directly to English. The purpose is not to walk around speaking every thought aloud forever. The purpose is to create a new mental habit. At first, you may consciously choose English. Later, common thoughts will begin appearing in English automatically. The phrase, I am running late, may come before you search for it. The sentence, I forgot to bring my phone, may appear naturally because you have connected that situation to English many times. This is how the bridge becomes faster. One of the strongest ways to reduce translation is to think in meaning instead of individual words. Translation often becomes slow because learners search for an English word to match every word in the first language sentence. But languages do not work like identical boxes. One language may use a single word where English uses a phrase. English may organize the sentence differently or express the idea through another image. If you chase exact word-for-word matching, you may become trapped. Imagine that you want to express the idea that someone gave you courage during a difficult time. Your first language may use an expression that has no natural word-for-word English translation. Instead of translating every piece, ask, "What is the meaning?" The meaning might be, "That person encouraged me when I was struggling." Once the meaning is clear, English becomes easier. You are not translating words, you are expressing an idea. This is a golden rule of direct thinking. Protect the meaning, not the original sentence. Your first language sentence is only one possible way to carry the thought. English may carry it differently. If you want to say that a situation caused great pressure, you do not need to reproduce the exact structure from your language. You can say, "The situation was extremely stressful. I felt under a lot of pressure," or "It was difficult to handle." The correct choice depends on the meaning you want to communicate, not on the number of words in the original sentence. Another powerful step is learning English in chunks instead of isolated words. A chunk is a group of words that often appears together and carries a complete purpose. Phrases like, "From my experience," "The main reason is," "I am not sure yet," "It depends on the situation," "What I mean is," and "That is why," can be retrieved as complete units. Your brain does not need to build them word by word each time. When you learn isolated vocabulary, speaking requires construction. You know reason, main, and is, but you must arrange them under pressure. When you learn the chunk, "The main reason is," the beginning of your answer is already built. You only need to add the idea. This reduces translation and gives your thought immediate movement. Suppose someone asks, "Why do you want to speak English fluently?" Instead of translating a full answer, begin with the chunk, "The main reason is," then complete it. "The main reason is that I want to communicate confidently." Continue with another chunk, for example, then add your example. Finish with, "That is why." These patterns create a direct English road because the structure is ready before the conversation begins. Fluent speakers depend heavily on chunks, even if they do not realize it. They are not creating every sentence from zero. Thousands of common combinations are already stored inside their minds. They say, "Make a decision, take responsibility, build confidence, express an opinion, and solve a problem," without choosing each word separately. This is one reason their speaking feels fast. They retrieve groups of words rather than constructing everything one piece at a time. You can build this ability by learning useful phrases around your real life. If you often discuss English learning, train chunks such as, "My biggest challenge is," "I am trying to improve," "One thing I noticed is," "The problem happens when," "A useful example is," and "What helped me most was." If you need English for work, train phrases such as, "I am responsible for," "I would like to suggest," "The main issue is," "We need to improve," and "Let me clarify that." Useful chunks depend on the situations you actually face. Direct English thinking also requires accepting simple language. Many learners translate because their inner thoughts are too advanced for the English they currently control. They reject the simple sentence that comes naturally and wait for a more impressive sentence. This waiting creates silence. The learner may think, "I want to express this idea perfectly," but the search for perfection stops the idea from moving at all. Suppose you want to say that a new experience completely changed how you understand life. You may search for an advanced expression and become stuck. Begin simply, "That experience changed the way I think." This sentence is clear and meaningful. If you want more detail, add it in another sentence. "Before that, I believed success was only about money, but afterward, I understood that peace and health also matter." The idea becomes deep through connected simple sentences, not through one difficult sentence. Direct thinking becomes possible when you trust the English you already have. If your brain produces a simple sentence, use it. You can strengthen it later. Movement is more important than immediate perfection. A bridge becomes useful when thoughts can cross it, not when every part of it looks impressive. This principle is especially important during real conversation. You do not have unlimited time to create the most beautiful answer. Your first responsibility is to keep communication alive. Say the simple sentence. Add a reason. Give an example. If a better word appears later, you can use it. If the listener understands, the bridge has succeeded. Another way to create direct English thinking is to use images. Human thought does not always begin as language. Sometimes you remember a face, a place, a movement, or a scene before words appear. Instead of describing the image in your first language, connect the image directly to English. Look at a picture and describe the people, objects, actions, colors, emotions, and possible story. Imagine a photograph of a man sitting alone at a railway station. You might think, he is waiting for a train, he looks tired and worried. Perhaps he has been traveling for a long time. His bag is beside him and the station appears almost empty. You are not translating a prepared paragraph. You are turning visual information directly into English. This practice is powerful because images give your mind something concrete. You do not need to invent the entire idea from nothing. The scene supports you. Over time, your brain becomes faster at moving from observation to English description. This ability later helps during storytelling, presentations, and ordinary conversations because many thoughts begin as mental images. You can also practice direct thinking through actions. As you complete a task, describe the process in English. While making tea, think, first I boil the water, then I add the tea. After that, I wait for a few minutes. While organizing your room, think, I need to put these books on the shelf and move the chair closer to the desk. Action language is useful because the meaning is happening in front of you. Another strong method is question-based self-talk. Instead of translating random thoughts, ask yourself simple English questions and answer them directly. Ask, what am I doing? Why am I doing it? What do I need next? How do I feel? What happened earlier? What will I do tomorrow? These questions guide your mind into English. For example, ask, what do I need to finish today? Answer, I need to complete my work and reply to 2 messages. Ask, why am I tired? Answer, I am tired because I slept late last night. Ask, what will I do tomorrow? Answer, tomorrow I will practice English in the morning and meet a friend in the evening. This practice connects daily thought directly to English tense patterns without formal translation. Do not turn self-talk into a difficult grammar examination. If you make a mistake, correct it later. The purpose is to build speed and connection. Your brain needs permission to create English without fear. If every internal sentence is attacked immediately, direct thinking becomes another source of pressure. Another reason translation remains strong is that learners spend most of their time consuming English and very little time producing it. They watch videos, read books, and listen to podcasts. This input is valuable because it gives the brain vocabulary, sentence patterns, pronunciation, and rhythm. But input alone does not guarantee direct output. Your brain must practice retrieving and using what it receives. After listening to a short English clip, pause and explain the main idea in your own words. Do not repeat the speaker exactly. Ask, what did I understand? Then answer in simple English. If the speaker discussed confidence, you might say, the main idea was that confidence grows through action. The speaker explained that waiting to feel ready can keep people stuck. This turns passive listening into active thinking. After reading a paragraph, close the book and summarize it aloud. If you cannot remember the exact words, that is good. You are being forced to protect the meaning and create your own English. This is one of the fastest ways to weaken translation because you are not copying the original sentence or translating from your first language. You are rebuilding the idea directly in English. Direct thinking also depends on building strong associations between English words and real experiences. If you learn the word relieved, do not only memorize its translation. Connect it to a moment when a problem ended. Think, I felt relieved when I heard the good news. If you learn frustrated, connect it to the experience of trying repeatedly without success. Think, I feel frustrated when I understand a question but cannot answer quickly. Personal experience gives English words direct emotional meaning. A word connected only to a translation remains dependent on the first language. A word connected to an image, emotion, situation, sound, and English sentence becomes more independent. This is why personal examples are so powerful. They allow the English word to live inside your own world. For instance, do not only learn that determined means having a strong decision. Connect it to your English goal. I am determined to improve my speaking. Now imagine yourself practicing even on a difficult day. The word gains emotional weight. During future conversation, it may appear more quickly because it is linked to your identity, not only to a dictionary definition. Another major part of direct thinking is learning to paraphrase. Translation teaches the brain to search for one perfect match. Paraphrasing teaches the brain that one thought can travel through several English routes. This flexibility is essential for fluency because even advanced speakers sometimes forget words. They do not freeze because they know how to explain the meaning differently. Suppose you forget the word generous. You can say, he likes helping people and sharing what he has. If you forget appointment, you can say, I have a planned meeting with the doctor. If you forget crowded, you can say, there were too many people in the place. These explanations may not be as short as the missing word, but they keep communication moving. Practice paraphrasing deliberately. Choose a word and explain it without using the word itself. Explain confident. It means you believe in your ability and do not feel controlled by fear. Explain exhausted. It means you are extremely tired and have very little energy. Explain effective. It means something works well and produces the result you want. This exercise strengthens direct meaning and protects you from going blank. You can also paraphrase complete sentences. Original idea. Consistency is more important than intensity. Another version. Practicing a little every day is usually better than practicing for many hours only once. Another version. Regular effort creates stronger progress than occasional extreme effort. The thought remains stable while the language changes. This skill is one of the strongest parts of the English thought bridge. If your brain knows only one sentence for one thought, losing one word can destroy the whole answer. If your brain has several routes, the thought continues moving. Another powerful practice is building direct English responses to common situations. Much of daily conversation follows predictable patterns. People greet you, ask for opinions, request information, disagree, apologize, invite you, or ask about your experiences. You can prepare flexible English responses for these situations without memorizing complete scripts. If someone asks for your opinion, begin with, I believe, in my view, or from my experience. If you need time, say, that is an interesting question, or let me think for a moment. If you do not understand, say, could you explain what you mean? If you need to correct yourself, say, let me rephrase that. These phrases reduce translation because they give you immediate English actions during conversation. The more real situations you train, the more your brain learns to respond directly. You are not memorizing one fixed answer. You are building response doors. When the situation appears, the door opens. Direct English thinking also requires a healthier relationship with grammar. Some learners translate because they want to create the sentence in a language they control before risking English grammar. They feel that if the idea is complete in the first language, they can translate it carefully and avoid mistakes. But real speaking does not allow constant grammar checking. You need sentence patterns that feel familiar enough to use under pressure. Instead of studying grammar only as rules, train it as meaningful patterns. Do not only memorize that the present perfect uses have plus a past participle. Practice thoughts such as, I have never tried that. I have already finished. I have lived here for 3 years, and I have learned a lot from this experience. Connect each pattern to a real meaning and situation. When grammar becomes a pattern tied to meaning, direct thinking becomes easier. You do not need to translate and then select a rule. The situation activates the pattern. A completed experience activates I have already. A continuing situation activates I have been. A future plan activates I am going to. This is how grammar moves from information into usable language. Another obstacle is mental speed. Your first language may produce complex thoughts instantly, while English comes more slowly. Learners often become impatient and return to translation because it feels faster inside the mind. But speed in English cannot be forced. It must be trained through repeated simple production. Begin slowly and clearly. Think one sentence, speak it. Think the next sentence, speak it. Over time, the gap becomes shorter. Trying to think at native speed before your patterns are ready creates pressure. Accept your current speed while training for a faster future. Imagine learning a new physical movement. At first, you perform it slowly so the body understands the pattern. Later, speed grows naturally. If you force speed too early, mistakes increase and confidence falls. English thinking follows the same principle. Slow direct thinking is better than fast translation because slow direct thinking builds the road you eventually need. Another golden method is the 5-second thought rule. When you want to express something, give yourself only a few seconds to begin with the simplest English sentence available. Do not wait for the complete answer. Start. If someone asks, "What did you think of the film?" Begin, "I thought it was interesting because." If someone asks, "Why are you learning English?" Begin, "I am learning English because." The opening creates movement and reduces the chance that translation will take control. This rule is not about rushing your entire answer. It is about stopping perfectionism from closing the bridge before you begin. Once the first sentence is moving, the next thought often becomes easier. You should also practice direct English thinking around your most common conversation topics. List the subjects you discuss regularly: family, work, study, goals, health, travel, hobbies, daily routines, and opinions. Build English thought paths for these areas. You do not need to memorize speeches, but you should become comfortable expressing your main ideas. For example, around work, practice. "I work as," "My main responsibility is," "The most challenging part is," "One thing I enjoy is." Around English learning, practice. "My biggest challenge is," "What helps me most is," "I used to struggle with," "My next goal is." These familiar thought paths reduce the need for translation because your brain has already traveled through them. However, direct thinking does not mean repeating fixed sentences like a robot. Use patterns as foundations, then fill them with real meaning. The pattern "My biggest challenge is" can carry hundreds of different thoughts. It gives structure without removing freedom. Another important part of this journey is understanding that translation may return during stressful moments. You may think directly in English while practicing alone, but begin translating again in an interview, meeting, or conversation with a fluent speaker. This does not mean the method failed. Pressure activates old habits because they feel familiar. Continue practicing until the direct road becomes strong enough to remain open under pressure. Train gradually. Begin with self-talk, then record yourself, then speak with a supportive friend, then join a group or answer unexpected questions. Each level adds more pressure while allowing the bridge to strengthen. Do not jump from silent study directly into the most stressful speaking situation and then judge yourself harshly. Another useful method is controlled retelling. Listen to a short story, wait for a few moments, and tell it again in English using your own words. Focus on the order of events and the main meaning. Do not worry if your version is shorter. The purpose is not perfect copying. The purpose is direct reconstruction. Suppose the story says that a woman missed her bus, walked to work, arrived late, and apologized to her manager. Your retelling might be, a woman missed her bus in the morning, so she had to walk to work. She arrived late and explained what happened to her manager. This is direct English production based on remembered meaning. It trains sequencing, grammar, vocabulary, and thought connection at the same time. As your skill grows, retell longer stories and add details, emotions, and lessons. This strengthens the bridge from memory to English without requiring first language translation. You can also practice future thinking directly in English. Before an event, imagine what you may need to say. If you are going to a shop, think, "I am looking for." "Do you have this in another size? How much does it cost?" If you are attending a meeting, think, "I would like to add something. Could you clarify that point?" Or "I agree with the main idea, but..." This preparation creates direct English roots before the situation begins. Future rehearsal is powerful because it reduces surprise. Your brain has already crossed the bridge once in imagination, so the real crossing becomes easier. Another deep change happens when you begin using English to reflect on your life, not only to practice language. Write or speak about what you learned, what worried you, what made you grateful, or what you want to change. When English becomes a tool for real reflection, it stops feeling like a school subject and begins becoming part of your thinking identity. You might say, "Today I realized that I lose confidence when I compare myself with others. I need to focus on my own progress instead." This is not an artificial practice sentence, it is a real thought expressed through English. These moments create strong emotional connections and make the language more personal. The goal is not to replace every private thought with English. Your first language is part of who you are, and there is no need to fight it. The goal is to create an English space inside your mind where ideas can form without needing translation. At first, that space may be small. It may contain daily routines, simple opinions, and common phrases. With practice, it expands. Soon you will be able to plan in English, solve simple problems in English, describe emotions in English, and explain experiences in English. The English space will grow not because you forced it, but because you used it consistently. A practical daily routine can accelerate this process. Begin with 2 minutes of observation. Look around and describe what you see directly in English. Continue with 3 minutes of self-questioning about your day. Then choose one topic and speak for 1 minute without preparing in your first language. After that, listen to a short English clip and summarize it in your own words. Finally, choose one useful phrase and use it in 3 personal sentences. This routine trains direct observation, direct response, focused thought, active listening, paraphrasing, and personal vocabulary. It does not require hours, it requires consistency. During this practice, avoid stopping every few seconds to check a dictionary. If a missing word is essential, look it up afterward. During speaking, protect the flow by describing the idea another way. Constantly checking words trains dependency. Paraphrasing trains fluency. After practice, review your recording and identify 1 or 2 useful improvements. Perhaps you repeated the same word, used an unclear sentence, or needed a better expression. Learn the correction and use it in another sentence. This balance keeps communication free during speaking and allows accuracy to improve afterward. Never confuse direct thinking with perfect thinking. Your first direct English thoughts may be simple, incomplete, or grammatically imperfect. That is normal. A new road is rarely smooth on the first day. Every use strengthens it. If you demand perfection immediately, you may return to the old translation road because it feels safer. Celebrate small signs of change. Perhaps you suddenly think, "I am hungry," without translating. Perhaps you answer a simple question immediately. Perhaps you forget a word but explain it differently. Perhaps you summarize a video without using your first language. These moments prove that the bridge is growing. At the end of this chapter, understand this golden truth. Thinking directly in English is not a magical ability that appears after you memorize enough vocabulary. It is a habit built through thousands of small connections between real meaning and English expression. You build it when you describe what you see. You build it when you connect English words to personal experiences. You build it when you learn complete chunks. You build it when you summarize instead of translating. You build it when you paraphrase a forgotten word. You build it when you start with simple English rather than waiting for perfect English. The first language road may remain faster for a long time, and that is natural. It has years of experience. But every day you practice direct English, the new road becomes wider, smoother, and easier to trust. Eventually, ordinary thoughts will begin traveling through English before translation has time to appear. Someone will ask you a question and you will begin answering without building the sentence somewhere else first. You will choose a simple direction, use familiar chunks, add your reason, and continue. You may not even notice what happened until the conversation is over. Then you will realize that your English did not come through translation. It came directly from your thought. That is the moment the English thought bridge begins carrying your real voice. Do not wait for that bridge to build itself. Use it today. Look around, choose one thought, and give it English words. Then choose another thought. Speak it simply. Continue even when a word is missing. Rephrase when necessary. Trust meaning more than perfection. Every direct thought removes one unnecessary step. Every direct sentence weakens the translation habit. Every real conversation makes the bridge stronger. And when that bridge becomes strong enough, English will no longer feel like a language you must pull out of another language. It will begin to feel like another natural road your mind can use to reach the world. Chapter 4. The hidden path fluent speakers use without realizing it. When you listen to a fluent English speaker, it may seem that every sentence appears instantly and effortlessly. The speaker does not appear to search for grammar, arrange every word, or translate ideas before speaking. One thought moves naturally into the next, sentences connect without long pauses, and even when the speaker changes direction, adds an example, or corrects an idea, the conversation continues smoothly. From the outside, this can look like a special talent that some people naturally possess, but fluent speaking is not magic. Behind that natural flow is a hidden mental path made from familiar structures, repeated language patterns, reliable sentence beginnings, and connections that have been used so many times that the speaker no longer notices them. Fluent speakers rarely create every sentence from nothing. They do not select each word separately as if they were building a new machine during every conversation. Instead, their minds travel along familiar roads. They already have natural ways to begin an opinion, explain a reason, give an example, add a contrast, correct a misunderstanding, describe an experience, and bring an answer to a clear conclusion. The topic may change, but the hidden path remains similar. This is one of the most important secrets of spoken English because it shows you that fluency is not the ability to invent perfect language at high speed. Fluency is the ability to move through familiar thought and language routes without becoming mentally lost. Imagine two people walking through a forest. The first person has never been there before. Every few steps, this person must stop, examine the ground, move branches, decide which direction looks safe, and worry about becoming lost. The second person has walked through the forest hundreds of times. The path may not be marked with signs, but the person recognizes every turn, every tree, and every difficult section. Both people are moving through the same forest, but one uses enormous mental energy while the other moves almost automatically. Speaking English works in a similar way. When every sentence feels completely new, you must choose every word, every tense, every structure, and every connection consciously. But when you have trained reliable speaking paths, your brain knows where to go next. This hidden path begins with something simple. Fluent speakers know how to start before they know every detail of what they are going to say. They do not always wait until the entire answer is complete inside their minds. They begin with a familiar opening that gives the thought direction, such as, "I think the main issue is, from my experience, the first thing to understand is, there are several reasons for this," or "what surprised me most was." These openings are not meaningless decorations, they are mental doors. Once the door opens, the next idea has somewhere to go. Many learners freeze because they believe the first sentence must contain the entire answer. They search for the perfect beginning, and the longer they search, the more pressure they feel. Fluent speakers often do something much simpler. They begin with a safe structure, place the main thought inside it, and then develop the answer one step at a time. If someone asks, "Why is learning English difficult for many adults?" a learner may try to create a complete and intelligent explanation before saying anything. A fluent speaker may simply begin, "I think one of the biggest reasons is fear of making mistakes." That first sentence creates a direction. The speaker can then add, "Many adults know more English than they use, but they become too careful during conversation. As a result, they hesitate, translate, and lose confidence." The answer grows because the first thought opened the path. This is the first part of the hidden route. Begin with direction, not perfection. A clear direction is enough to start speaking. Once movement begins, the brain receives more information about what it wants to say. The next sentence becomes easier because it is connected to something already spoken. In contrast, when you remain silent and attempt to create everything internally, your working memory becomes crowded. You hold the topic, possible vocabulary, grammar choices, listener expectations, and fear of error all at once. The mind becomes overloaded before the conversation has even started. The next part of the hidden path is the ability to move from a main point to a reason. Fluent speakers understand, often without thinking about it, that an unsupported statement may feel incomplete. After saying what they believe, they naturally explain why. This creates one of the strongest speaking patterns in English: point, then reason. You can hear it everywhere. "I prefer studying in the morning because my mind feels fresher." "I think daily practice is more useful than occasional long sessions because repetition keeps the language active." "I would not choose that option because it costs too much and does not solve the real problem." This pattern sounds simple, but it creates powerful fluency because it gives the next sentence a predictable job. Once you state the point, your mind does not need to search randomly. It asks why. That question leads naturally to the reason. If the reason is still not enough, the mind asks, "Can I give an example?" Now the answer follows another familiar route: point, reason, example. This structure can carry almost any topic from daily life to professional discussions. Suppose someone asks, "Do you think people should practice speaking English every day?" You can begin with the point, "Yes, I think daily speaking practice is extremely important." Then the reason. The reason is that speaking is a skill that becomes easier through frequent use. Then the example. For example, a learner who speaks for 10 minutes every day usually becomes more comfortable than someone who studies grammar for several hours but rarely opens their mouth. Then the conclusion. That is why small daily speaking practice can create stronger results than occasional intensive study. The answer sounds organized because each thought has a clear role. You do not need to memorize that exact answer. You need to understand the path behind it: main point, reason, example, conclusion. Once this path becomes familiar, you can place almost any topic inside it. The structure remains stable while the content changes. This is how fluent speakers handle unexpected questions. They may not know the exact answer in advance, but they know how to move through an answer. Another hidden route is comparison. When a speaker wants to make an idea clearer, the mind often compares two situations. In the past, I focused mainly on grammar, but now I spend more time speaking. Learning isolated words can help, but learning complete phrases is more useful for conversation. Studying alone gives you control, while practicing with other people teaches you how to respond under pressure. Comparison makes speaking easier because the second idea is built in relation to the first. Learners sometimes believe they need new vocabulary to speak longer, but often they simply need a new relationship between existing ideas. You can compare the past with the present, one method with another, expectation with reality, problem with solution, or advantage with disadvantage. These relationships create natural expansion. Instead of searching for unrelated information, your mind asks, "How is this different?" The answer can then continue without losing direction. Consider the question, has your English learning method changed? You might say, yes, it has changed significantly. In the past, I spent most of my time memorizing vocabulary and reading grammar explanations, but I did not practice producing English. Now I focus more on speaking aloud, summarizing what I hear, and using new phrases in personal sentences. The old method gave me knowledge, while the new method helps me access that knowledge during real communication. The answer becomes detailed not because every sentence is advanced, but because the thought path is clear. Contrast is another path fluent speakers use constantly. They say, "The problem is not that learners lack vocabulary. The problem is that they cannot retrieve it quickly." They say, "Confidence does not come before action. It develops because of action." They say, "Fluency is not about speaking without pauses. It is about knowing how to continue after a pause." Contrast gives a thought power because it removes one misunderstanding and replaces it with a clearer idea. This pattern is especially useful when you want to explain something important. Begin with what people commonly believe, then show a different truth. Many learners think they must understand every word, but strong listening does not require perfect understanding. The real goal is to follow the main message and use context to fill the gaps. This structure creates curiosity because the listener first recognizes a familiar belief and then receives a new perspective. Fluent speakers also know how to move from general ideas to specific examples. A general statement may sound correct but distant. An example makes it visible. If you say learners often create too much pressure while speaking, the listener understands the idea but it remains abstract. If you add, for example, they may spend 10 seconds searching for an advanced word even though a simple word could communicate the same meaning, the idea becomes real. Examples reduce the mental difficulty of speaking because they give your mind a concrete scene. You no longer need to remain in abstract language. You can describe what happened, who was involved, what someone said, and what the result was. This is why personal examples are especially powerful. They allow you to use language connected to your own memory. Suppose you want to explain why recording your voice is useful. You could say, recording yourself helps you notice problems. That is clear but limited. You can continue. For example, when I first recorded myself, I noticed that I was speaking too quickly and dropping important word endings. I had never recognized this while speaking because I was focused only on producing the sentence. After listening, I slowed down and practiced the same answer again. The personal example gives the idea depth and makes the answer easier to remember. Another part of the hidden path is sequencing. Fluent speakers naturally organize events and explanations into a clear order. They use language such as at first, after that, a little later, eventually, and in the end. These expressions guide both the speaker and the listener. The speaker knows which stage comes next, while the listener understands how the ideas connect. Without sequence, a story may jump between moments and become difficult to follow. A learner may remember details in a random order and try to say them exactly as they appear in the mind. Fluent storytelling requires a path. Begin with the situation, introduce the problem, explain the action, describe the result, and share the lesson. This structure can turn an ordinary experience into a clear and interesting story. Imagine you want to describe a difficult English conversation. You can begin, "A few months ago, I had to speak English during an online meeting." Then introduce the challenge. "At first, I felt nervous because everyone else seemed to speak more quickly than I did." Explain the action. "Instead of remaining silent, I prepared one simple point and waited for the right moment to speak." Describe the result. "When I finally shared my idea, I made a few mistakes, but the other people understood me and responded positively." Finish with the lesson. "That experience taught me that contributing one clear idea is more valuable than waiting for perfect English." The story succeeds because each stage leads naturally to the next. The hidden path also contains language for repairing communication. Many learners believe fluent speakers never become confused, forget words, or change sentences. This is not true. Fluent speakers simply know how to repair the road without stopping the entire journey. They say, "Let me explain that more clearly. That is not exactly what I meant. What I am trying to say is, let me put it another way. I cannot remember the exact word, but it means." These expressions protect the conversation. Repair language is one of the most valuable speaking tools because it changes your relationship with mistakes. A mistake no longer becomes the end of the sentence. It becomes a small problem that can be fixed while you continue. If you say something unclear, you do not need to panic or apologize repeatedly. You can calmly say, "Let me rephrase that," and try again. Suppose you say, "My job gives me many tensions." You recognize that the sentence does not sound natural. Instead of freezing, continue, "Let me put that more clearly. My job creates a lot of stress because I have to manage several responsibilities at the same time." The second sentence repairs the first and gives you more control. The conversation survives and the listener sees determination rather than failure. Fluent speakers also use holding expressions that give them a moment to think without creating uncomfortable silence. Phrases such as, "That is an interesting question. I have never thought about that before. Let me think for a moment," or "There are a few ways to answer that," provide valuable time. These expressions are not tricks designed to hide weakness. They are natural parts of real conversation. Even native speakers need time to organize difficult thoughts. The difference is that fluent speakers know how to remain inside the conversation while thinking. Learners often become completely silent because they believe they must produce the answer immediately. Silence increases pressure because the learner begins worrying about how long the listener has been waiting. A holding expression keeps the bridge open. It tells the listener that the answer is coming and gives your mind enough space to choose a direction. Another hidden structure is the ability to return to the main point. During longer answers, the speaker may add examples, comparisons, and details, but eventually needs to remind the listener of the central message. Phrases such as, "The main point is," "What matters most is," "So in the end," or "That is why I believe," bring the answer back home. This matters because speaking longer does not automatically mean speaking better. Without a return path, an answer can expand until both the speaker and listener forget the original question. Fluent speakers may explore several ideas, but they know how to reconnect them. The answer feels complete because it ends where it began. For example, imagine you are discussing the importance of mistakes. You may explain fear, share a personal example, compare classroom learning with real conversation, and describe how correction works. After these details, you can return to the main point. So the main lesson is that mistakes are not proof that your English is weak. They are evidence that you are using the language and discovering what needs more practice. This final return gives the entire answer meaning. The hidden path is also built from transition language. Transitions are the bridges inside the larger bridge. They connect one thought to another and prevent your speech from sounding like separate, unrelated sentences. Words and phrases such as, however, because of this, for example, at the same time, in addition, as a result, on the other hand, and the most important thing is, show the relationship between ideas. Many learners know these expressions but use them only in writing. During speaking, they produce short sentences without clear connections. I study English every day. Speaking is difficult. I know vocabulary. I feel nervous. The listener can understand each sentence, but the thought feels broken. Transitions can create a path. I study English every day, and I know a large amount of vocabulary. However, speaking is still difficult because I become nervous during real conversations. As a result, I cannot always access the words I already know. The language is not dramatically more advanced, but the connections make it sound more fluent. The goal is not to fill every sentence with formal transitions. Spoken English often uses simple connectors such as and, but, so, and because. These small words are extremely powerful. I wanted to answer, but I became nervous, so I gave a very short response. One sentence now carries a desire, a problem, and a result. Do not underestimate simple connectors. They are some of the strongest pieces of the speaking bridge. Fluent speakers also rely on cause and effect paths. They explain what happened and why it happened, or what action produced a result. I started practicing aloud, so my pronunciation became clearer. Because I was translating every sentence, I could not respond quickly. I stopped trying to use difficult vocabulary, and as a result, my speaking became more natural. Cause and effect help you speak longer because every event can lead to a reason or a result. When you feel that you have nothing more to say, ask yourself, why did this happen, or what happened because of it? These questions open new roads. If you say, I started watching English interviews, you can ask why. I started watching them because I wanted to hear natural conversation. Then ask what happened. As a result, I became more familiar with common expressions and different speaking speeds. One simple action has now become a complete explanation. Another route is problem and solution. Fluent speakers often organize practical answers by identifying a difficulty and then presenting a response. The main problem is that learners study passively. A useful solution is to summarize lessons aloud after watching them. The problem is not a lack of time. The real problem is that practice is not part of a daily routine. One solution is to connect English practice to an activity you already do every day. This structure is powerful because it creates natural tension and resolution. The listener first recognizes the difficulty and then wants to hear what can be done. It is useful for teaching, giving advice, discussing work, and explaining personal growth. Suppose someone asks how learners can stop translating. You can say, the problem is that many learners create complete sentences in their first language before speaking. A better approach is to begin with simple English thoughts connected to real situations. For example, instead of translating a long description of your morning, look at what you are doing and say, I am making breakfast, I need to leave soon, or I am running late. These small direct thoughts slowly build a faster English path. Again, the structure carries the explanation. Fluent speakers also use concession, which means recognizing another side before presenting their own point. They say, grammar is important, but it should not stop you from communicating. Translation can be useful at the beginning, but depending on it forever makes speaking slower. Practicing alone is helpful, although real conversations are still necessary. This makes speech sound balanced because the speaker is not ignoring complexity. Learners sometimes believe strong speaking means making absolute statements. In reality, fluent communication often includes balance. Phrases such as, in some situations, it depends on, to a certain extent, although that can be true, and the advantage is, but the disadvantage is, allow you to express mature opinions. Imagine someone asks, is watching films the best way to learn English? A weak answer might be, yes, films are the best. A more balanced answer could be, films can be extremely useful because they expose learners to natural pronunciation and everyday expressions. However, watching alone is not enough. Learners need to pause, repeat, summarize, and use the language actively, so films are a powerful tool, but only when they are combined with real practice. The answer feels thoughtful because it follows a balanced path. Another hidden path is clarification. Fluent speakers do not assume the listener understands every general statement. They often add, in other words, more specifically, by that I mean, or to give you a clearer picture. Clarification allows the speaker to take a broad thought and make it more precise. You might say learners need to activate their English. By that I mean they must use the words and grammar they already recognize instead of only receiving more information. The second sentence explains the first. This is valuable when you are discussing abstract ideas such as confidence, fluency, discipline, or mindset. Clarification also helps when you notice that your first sentence was too general. You may begin, I had a difficult day, then clarify, more specifically, I had several urgent tasks and I could not focus on any of them properly. The second sentence gives the listener a clearer picture. Fluent speaking does not require every first sentence to be perfect, it requires the ability to develop meaning. The hidden root becomes stronger when you learn to predict the next possible thought. After making a statement, ask whether the listener may naturally wonder why, how, when, where, or what happened next. Answering these invisible questions creates complete communication. If you say, I changed my English routine, the listener may wonder how. You can continue, instead of studying for 2 hours once a week, I now practice for 20 minutes every day. The listener may then wonder why. I made this change because daily repetition helps me remember more. The listener may wonder about the result. After a few weeks, I noticed that words came to mind more quickly. You have created a natural chain by answering the questions your first sentence produces. This is one reason some people seem able to speak for a long time. They are not carrying a giant prepared speech inside their minds. They simply follow the questions created by each idea. Statement leads to reason. Reason leads to example. Example leads to result. Result leads to lesson. The speaker keeps walking because every step reveals the next part of the path. You can train this skill deliberately. Begin with one sentence. I want to become a confident English speaker. Ask why. Because I want to express my real personality during conversations. Ask what currently prevents this. I often translate and worry about mistakes. Ask what you are doing about it. I practice answering unexpected questions aloud. Ask what result you expect. I believe this will help me respond more naturally under pressure. One simple sentence has become a complete answer. Fluent speakers also have familiar ways to express uncertainty. Learners sometimes freeze when they are not completely sure because they think they must present a perfect fact or strong opinion. Natural English allows uncertainty. You can say, I am not completely sure, but I think, as far as I know, it seems to me that I could be wrong, but, or my current understanding is. These phrases allow you to participate without pretending to know everything. This matters because many real conversations involve opinions, incomplete information, and changing ideas. Speaking confidently does not mean acting certain about everything. It means communicating the level of certainty honestly. When you learn these structures, difficult questions become less frightening because you no longer need a perfect answer. Suppose someone asks about the future of technology. You may not have expert knowledge, but you can say, I cannot predict exactly what will happen, but I think technology will become more deeply connected to education and daily work. At the same time, people will probably need to think more carefully about privacy and human connection. This is a meaningful answer even though it includes uncertainty. Another path fluent speakers use is emotional explanation. They do not only describe events, they explain how those events affected them. I felt disappointed because I had prepared carefully. At first I was embarrassed, but later I realized the mistake was useful. The experience gave me confidence because I proved that I could continue even when my English was imperfect. Emotion adds human meaning and helps the listener connect with the story. Learners sometimes limit themselves to facts because emotions feel harder to express. They say, I went to the interview, I answered questions, I came home. The sequence is understandable but lifeless. Add emotional thought. Before the interview, I felt extremely nervous because it was my first time answering professional questions in English. During the conversation, I made several mistakes, but I became calmer after the interviewer responded kindly. When I came home, I felt proud because I had completed something I had been avoiding for months. The English becomes more engaging because the hidden path includes emotion, change, and meaning. Fluent speakers also know how to emphasize the most important part of an idea. They use phrases such as, "What matters most is," "The biggest lesson was," "The most difficult part was," "The real reason is," or "The one thing I want you to remember is." Emphasis helps the listener understand where to focus and helps the speaker organize the answer. If everything in your answer sounds equally important, the listener may not know what to remember. Emphasis creates a center. For example, there are many ways to improve speaking, but the most important thing is consistent, active practice. You can learn vocabulary, study grammar, and watch useful videos, but if you never produce English, your speaking ability will remain passive. The emphasized idea controls the paragraph. Another hidden skill is repetition with variation. Fluent speakers sometimes repeat a central thought using different words. This is not useless repetition. It strengthens meaning, gives the listener another chance to understand, and allows the speaker to develop the idea. For example, you do not need perfect English to begin speaking. You need enough courage to express one clear idea. Fluency begins when communication becomes more important than perfection. These sentences carry a similar message, but each version adds a different angle. The repetition creates rhythm and impact. Learners often try to avoid repeating any word or idea because they believe repetition sounds weak, but natural speech includes repetition. The key is to develop the idea rather than repeat the exact sentence without purpose. Say it simply, explain it, then deepen it. The hidden path also includes natural endings. Many learners begin answers but do not know how to stop. They continue adding details until the sentence becomes weaker or they end with uncertainty. Fluent speakers often conclude by summarizing the main lesson, giving a final opinion, or connecting the answer back to the question. If you are asked what is the best way to build vocabulary, you might explain personal sentences, repetition, and speaking practice, then conclude, "So, for me, the best vocabulary method is not learning the largest number of words. It is using a smaller number of useful words until they become part of my active English." This ending gives the answer completeness. A conclusion does not need to be dramatic. It only needs to close the thought. Phrases such as, "That is why," "For this reason," "So overall," "In the end," and "The main lesson is," help the listener feel that the journey has reached its destination. Now consider how all these hidden roots work together inside one answer. Imagine someone asks, "Why do many learners understand English but struggle to speak it?" You begin with a familiar opening. I think the main reason is that understanding and speaking require different types of practice. You clarify. When you listen, the words are already provided, but when you speak, your brain must find and organize them. You give an example. For example, a learner may recognize the phrase "take responsibility" in a video but fail to remember it during a conversation. You contrast. The problem is not that the phrase is completely unknown. The problem is that it has not become active. You give a solution. The learner needs to use the phrase in personal sentences and spoken answers. You conclude. That is why active production is the missing step between understanding English and speaking it confidently. The answer sounds fluent because it follows a path. Opening, clarification, example, contrast, solution, conclusion. None of these parts requires extraordinary vocabulary. The power comes from connection. This is why you should stop judging fluency only by speed. A person can speak quickly and still sound confused. Another person can speak at a moderate pace but guide the listener through a clear path. True fluency includes direction, connection, recovery, and control. It means your ideas know where they are going. Speed usually grows after the path becomes familiar. When you have used "the main reason is" hundreds of times, the phrase appears quickly. When you have practiced point, reason, and example with many topics, your mind begins following that structure automatically. When repair phrases are familiar, mistakes create less panic. When transitions are active, one sentence connects more easily to the next. This process is similar to driving. A beginner consciously thinks about every movement, checking the mirror, controlling the speed, turning the wheel, and watching other vehicles. An experienced driver performs many of these actions automatically and can focus on the larger journey. In English, familiar structures reduce the number of decisions you must make consciously. Your attention becomes available for meaning, emotion, and connection with the listener. To build this hidden path, you need repeated speaking with familiar structures. Choose one structure and use it across several topics. Practice point, reason, example with health, work, education, technology, friendship, travel, and English learning. The content changes, but the root remains the same. You might say, I think regular exercise is important because it improves both physical and mental health. For example, even a short daily walk can reduce stress and increase energy. Then change the topic. I think reading is valuable because it exposes people to new ideas. For example, one useful book can completely change the way a person understands a problem. Then change it again. I think speaking practice is necessary because passive knowledge does not automatically become active language. For example, you may recognize hundreds of words but still struggle to use them in conversation. Every repetition makes the path more automatic. You are not memorizing one answer. You are teaching your mind how answers are built. Practice comparison with different topics. Studying alone gives me flexibility, while studying with others creates more speaking pressure. Living in a city offers more opportunities, while living in a village may provide more peace. Watching English content improves listening, but speaking aloud develops retrieval. These exercises make contrast available during real communication. Practice problem and solution. The problem is that many learners forget new words quickly. One solution is to connect every word to a personal sentence. The problem is that people wait for motivation. A better solution is to build a routine that continues even when motivation disappears. The repeated structure becomes a reliable mental road. Practice storytelling through situation, challenge, action, result, and lesson. Describe a small mistake, an unexpected conversation, a difficult day, or a moment of progress. You do not need dramatic stories. The purpose is to build sequence. You can also listen to fluent speakers and search for the hidden path instead of focusing only on vocabulary. Notice how they begin answers. Notice when they give reasons, examples, contrasts, and conclusions. Notice how they gain time, repair sentences, and return to the main point. Once you recognize these roots, fluent speech becomes less mysterious. Do not try to copy every advanced word. Copy the movement of the thought. Ask yourself, how did this speaker organize the answer? Perhaps the speaker began with an opinion, recognized another side, gave a personal example, and finished with a lesson. That structure may be more valuable than 10 unusual vocabulary words. After listening, recreate the same path with your own topic. If the speaker discusses work, use the structure to discuss English learning. If the speaker tells a travel story, use the same sequence to tell a story about school. This teaches flexibility. Another strong practice is delayed repetition. Speak about a topic today, then return to the same topic tomorrow without reading your previous answer. Your second answer may use different words, but the hidden path will become stronger. You may discover a better example, clearer reason, or more natural conclusion. Repeating topics is not boring when your purpose is to build automatic speaking. Record both versions and compare them. Do not only count mistakes, listen for structure. Did you begin more quickly? Did the reason connect clearly to the point? Did you give an example? Did you finish the idea? These are signs that the bridge is becoming more organized. You should also practice answering the same question at 3 lengths. First, answer in 1 sentence, then answer in 30 seconds. Finally, answer in 1 or 2 minutes. This teaches control. Take the question, why are you learning English? The 1-sentence answer might be, I am learning English because I want to communicate confidently and access more opportunities. The 30-second answer can include a reason and example. The longer answer can add your past challenge, current method, and future goal. The central thought remains the same, but the path expands according to the situation. This is an important fluency skill because real conversations require different answer lengths. Sometimes a short response is enough, sometimes the listener wants more detail. A strong speaker can expand or reduce the answer without losing clarity. Another useful exercise is the missing link test. Record a 1-minute answer and listen for places where one thought suddenly jumps to another. Ask what connection is missing. Do you need because, however, for example, or as a result? Add the link and repeat the answer. This teaches you to hear broken paths. For example, you may say, I practice English every morning. I feel nervous in conversations. The relationship is unclear. Do you mean practice has not removed your fear? Then say, I practice English every morning. However, I still feel nervous during real conversations because most of my practice happens alone. Now the thought has a clear relationship. The hidden path also grows when you reduce decision-making. Prepare a small collection of versatile phrases that match your speaking needs. You do not need hundreds of formal expressions. You need a manageable number that you can use automatically. Build openings, reason phrases, examples, contrasts, repair language, and conclusions. Then use them repeatedly until they become part of your active English. The purpose is not to sound robotic. A road does not decide where you travel. It simply makes movement easier. The same phrase can carry many different ideas. The main reason may begin an answer about education, confidence, money, relationships, work, or health. The structure provides stability while your real thought provides personality. Over time, you will stop noticing these phrases. They will appear naturally because the mind recognizes the job that needs to be done. You need to give a reason, so the main reason appears. You need to add an example, so, for example, opens the next part. You need to correct yourself, so what I mean protects the conversation. This is the automatic path fluent speakers use without realizing it. You should understand that this path is not fixed forever. As your English develops, your structures become more flexible. At first, you may depend heavily on simple patterns. Later, you will combine them, shorten them, and vary them naturally. The important thing is to build control before chasing complexity. A beginner musician practices basic patterns until the fingers move naturally. Only then can the musician focus fully on emotion and creativity. Speaking follows the same principle. Reliable structures are not the enemy of natural communication. They are the foundation that makes natural communication possible. When the hidden path becomes stronger, several changes begin to appear. You start speaking sooner because you have familiar openings. Your answers become longer because every idea creates a next step. You recover more easily because you know how to repair or rephrase. You sound clearer because transitions show how ideas connect. You feel calmer because you are not creating every sentence from zero. Most importantly, your real personality begins to appear in English. When grammar and structure require less conscious energy, you can focus on what you truly think. You can add humor, emotion, curiosity, disagreement, and personal experience. English stops sounding like a test and begins sounding like your voice. Do not wait for this hidden path to develop accidentally. Build it deliberately. Every day, choose one simple topic and move through a reliable structure. State your main point, explain your reason, add an example, and finish with a conclusion. On another day, practice comparison. On another, tell a short story. On another, present a problem and a solution. Use repair language whenever you become confused instead of stopping completely. With every repetition, the forest becomes more familiar, the path becomes wider, the difficult turns become easier to recognize. The place where you once became lost becomes a road you can follow without fear. One day, someone will ask you an unexpected question. You will not know the exact words you are going to use, but you will not panic. You will begin with a clear direction. The main point will lead to a reason. The reason will lead to an example. A contrast may appear. A forgotten word will be explained another way. The answer will return to the central message and finish naturally. When the conversation ends, you may wonder how you produce so much English without preparing it. The answer is that you did not build every sentence during that moment. You had already built the path through repeated practice. This is the golden truth fluent speakers rarely explain because they often no longer notice it themselves. Natural speaking does not come from knowing the future sentence, it comes from trusting the next step. You do not need to see the entire bridge before you begin crossing. You need to recognize the first section, take one clear step, and allow that step to reveal the next. A thought becomes a statement. The statement creates a reason. The reason invites an example. The example produces a lesson. When confusion appears, repair language keeps you moving. When the answer grows too wide, a return phrase brings you back. When the idea is complete, a conclusion closes the journey. This is the hidden path. It is not hidden because it is impossible to learn. It is hidden because fluent speakers use it so naturally that they forget it exists. Now you can see it. Now you can practice it. Now you can build it into your own English. Do not try to speak by jumping from one side of the river to the other. Place one thought on the bridge, connect it to the next, and continue. Every opening you practice, every reason you explain, every example you give, every sentence you repair, and every conclusion you complete strengthens the road between your mind and your voice. Eventually, you will no longer feel that you are searching for English in darkness. You will recognize the path beneath your feet. And when that path becomes familiar, your English will begin moving forward with a confidence that no memorized speech could ever give you. Chapter 5. Connect every thought until English flows naturally. Many English learners can produce one correct sentence, yet the moment they try to continue, their speaking begins to collapse. They may answer the first part of a question clearly, but then silence appears. They know there is more they want to say, but they cannot find the road from the first sentence to the second. Their ideas feel separated, their vocabulary feels scattered, and every new sentence seems to require another difficult beginning. This is why some learners can speak English in short pieces but struggle to create a complete answer, explain an experience, tell a story, or maintain a conversation for more than a few seconds. The problem is not always a lack of English. Often the learner already knows enough words and grammar to express the complete idea. The real difficulty is connection. The learner knows how to create individual sentences, but has not trained the mental links that allow those sentences to support one another. One thought reaches the bridge, crosses successfully, and then stands alone on the other side because the next thought has no clear path to follow. Natural English speaking is not a collection of separate sentences. It is a chain of connected meanings. The first thought creates a reason for the second thought to appear. The second thought opens space for an example. The example produces a result. The result reveals a lesson. When these connections become familiar, speaking no longer feels like repeatedly starting from zero. It begins to feel like one continuous movement. Imagine pushing a heavy object across the floor. The most difficult moment is often the beginning because you must overcome the resistance and create movement. Once the object is already moving, keeping it moving requires less effort. Speaking works in a similar way. Starting every sentence as a completely separate action is mentally exhausting. But when one sentence naturally carries you into the next, momentum begins to help you. This chapter will teach you how to create that momentum. You will learn how to turn one small thought into a complete answer, how to keep your ideas connected without memorizing long speeches, how to add detail without becoming confused, and how to continue speaking even when you do not immediately know what to say next. The goal is not to speak endlessly. The goal is to create a clear current that carries your meaning from beginning to end. The first principle is simple. Every sentence should either explain, support, develop, question, contrast, or complete the thought that came before it. When a new sentence has no relationship with the previous one, the listener feels a sudden jump. The words may be correct, but the answer does not feel natural because the mental road has been broken. Consider this answer. I want to improve my English. I watch videos. My job is difficult. I like traveling. Grammar is important. Every sentence is understandable, but the listener cannot clearly see how the ideas belong together. The speaker may have many thoughts, but those thoughts are being released in the order they appear, rather than in the order that creates meaning. Now listen to the same ideas with clear connections. I want to improve my English because it can help me communicate more confidently at work and while traveling. To support this goal, I watch English videos and practice useful expressions. Grammar is also important, but I am learning to use it through real sentences instead of only memorizing rules. The vocabulary is not dramatically more advanced, yet the answer feels much stronger because every thought supports the main direction. Connection begins when you stop asking only, "What sentence can I say next?" and start asking, "What does my previous sentence naturally need next?" This question changes speaking from random searching into guided development. If you say, "I find speaking English difficult," the sentence naturally invites a reason. Why is it difficult? You might continue. The main reason is that I try to translate my entire answer before I speak. That reason naturally invites an example. For example, when someone asks me an unexpected question, I create the answer in my first language and then struggle to find the English words. The example naturally invites a result. As a result, I hesitate and sometimes give up before completing my idea. The result naturally invites a solution. To change this, I am training myself to begin with one simple English sentence and develop the answer step by step. One basic statement has now become a complete explanation because each sentence answered the question created by the sentence before it. You did not need to memorize a paragraph, you only needed to follow the natural needs of the thought. This is the hidden engine of longer speaking. Strong speakers do not always have more ideas than you. They simply know how to develop one idea more deeply. A learner may believe that speaking for 2 minutes requires 10 different topics, but often one well-developed thought is enough. You can state the idea, explain it, give a reason, describe an example, add a result, compare it with another experience, and finish with a lesson. The topic remains the same while the meaning becomes richer. Many learners move away from a topic too quickly because they believe repetition is weak. They say one sentence about confidence, then immediately move to vocabulary, grammar, pronunciation, travel, work, and motivation. The answer becomes wide but shallow. A stronger speaker stays with the idea long enough for the listener to understand it fully. Suppose the topic is confidence. Instead of saying confidence is important and moving on, develop the thought. Confidence is important because it allows learners to use the English they already know. Without confidence, even familiar vocabulary may disappear under pressure. For example, a learner may understand a question perfectly but remain silent because they are afraid of making one mistake. When this happens repeatedly, the learner begins believing that their English is weaker than it really is. This is why confidence should not be treated as something that comes after fluency. It must be trained while fluency is developing. The answer feels substantial because one thought has been explored through reason, explanation, example, consequence, and conclusion. You did not need 10 ideas, you needed one idea connected well. The second principle is that every answer needs a center. The center is the main message you want the listener to remember. Without a center, thoughts may connect locally but still move away from the original question. You might explain one detail, then another, until the answer becomes a long road leading nowhere. Before speaking, identify the center in one sentence. If the question is, what is the best way to improve speaking? Your center might be, the best way is consistent active practice. Every additional thought should support that center. You can explain why active practice matters, compare it with passive study, describe a useful routine, give a personal example, and explain the result. But all these ideas must remain connected to the central message. Think of the center as the trunk of a tree. Reasons, examples, stories, and details are branches. A healthy tree can have many branches, but every branch must remain connected to the trunk. If a thought has no connection to the center, it belongs to another answer. This discipline protects you from rambling. Rambling happens when a speaker continues producing sentences but loses control of the destination. The problem is not speaking too much. The problem is speaking without a clear center. Imagine you are asked, why do people lose motivation while learning English? Your central message may be, they lose motivation because they expect progress to happen too quickly. From there, you can develop naturally. Many learners begin with strong excitement and create unrealistic plans. They promise to study for several hours every day, memorize hundreds of words, and become fluent within a few months. When real progress feels slower, they assume the method is failing or that they lack talent. As a result, they reduce their effort or stop completely. A better approach is to measure small improvements, such as answering more quickly, understanding a longer video, or using a new phrase naturally. When learners notice these smaller signs, motivation becomes connected to progress rather than fantasy. Every sentence remains connected to the center. The answer moves, but it does not wander. The third principle is to use thought questions as invisible connectors. After each sentence, your mind can ask a simple question that opens the next part. These questions include why, how, what happened, what does that mean, can I give an example, what was the result, how was it different before, and what did I learn? These questions are powerful because they reduce the need to invent a new topic. The previous sentence already provides the material for the next question. Take the sentence, recording my voice improved my speaking. Ask how. It helped me hear pronunciation problems that I could not notice while speaking. Ask for an example. For example, I discovered that I often swallowed the final sounds of words. Ask what you did next. After noticing this, I practiced the same sentences slowly and clearly. Ask what the result was. Within a few weeks, my speech became easier to understand. Ask what you learned. I learned that listening to myself is uncomfortable at first, but it reveals problems that silent study cannot show. The answer develops naturally because each question grows from the previous statement. You can practice this method alone. Say one sentence, pause briefly, and ask yourself one invisible question, then answer it. Continue for 1 minute. At first, you may need to consciously choose the question. Later, the process becomes automatic. Your mind begins sensing what the listener may want to know next. This is how conversational awareness develops. Strong speakers do not only release information, they anticipate the listener's curiosity. If they make a general statement, they expect the listener may want an example. If they describe a problem, they expect the listener may want a solution. If they tell a story, they expect the listener may want to know what happened next. The fourth principle is that small connectors create large fluency. Words such as because, but, so, although, however, therefore, and for example may appear simple, but they carry enormous power. They show relationships between thoughts, and relationships are what makes speech understandable. A learner may avoid these connectors because they want to use more advanced vocabulary, yet simple connectors often create the strongest spoken English. Consider the sentence, I wanted to join the discussion, but I felt nervous, so I waited too long and the topic changed before I could speak. The words are basic, but the meaning is complete. The sentence contains desire, obstacle, consequence, and final result. Now compare separate statements. I wanted to join the discussion. I felt nervous. I waited. The topic changed. The listener can understand, but the relationships require more effort. Connections reduce that effort. The goal is not to create extremely long sentences with endless connectors. The goal is to make the relationships clear. You may connect ideas inside one sentence or across several sentences. I wanted to join the discussion, but I felt nervous. Because I waited too long, the topic changed before I could speak. This version is easier to control while still showing the complete relationship. You should become deeply comfortable with 4 basic connections: addition, contrast, cause, and result. Addition allows you to develop a thought. Contrast allows you to show difference. Cause explains why something happened. Result explains what happened because of it. For addition, you can use and, also, in addition, or another reason is. For contrast, you can use but, however, although, or on the other hand. For cause, you can use because, since, or the reason is. For result, you can use so, as a result, therefore, or because of this. These are not simply grammar tools, they are thinking tools. When you choose a connector, you choose the relationship between your ideas. The connector tells your brain what kind of thought must come next. If you say, I understand English well, but, your brain knows that the next idea must present a contrast. You might continue. I understand English well, but I struggle to respond quickly. If you say, I struggle to respond quickly because, your mind knows it must give a cause. I struggle to respond quickly because I translate every sentence. If you say, as a result, your mind knows it must give the consequence. As a result, conversations move faster than my answers. A connector is like a road sign. It does not complete the journey, but it tells you which direction to take. The 5th principle is to use reference words so that sentences feel connected instead of repetitive. Fluent speakers do not always repeat the full noun or idea. They use words such as this, that, these, it, they, and such a situation to point back to something already mentioned. For example, you might say, many learners study English passively for years. This gives them strong recognition skills, but it does not always prepare them for real-time speaking. The word this connects the second sentence to the first. You might continue, because of this, they often understand much more than they can express. Again, the connection is clear. Without reference words, the answer may sound mechanical. Many learners study English passively for years. Studying English passively for years gives learners strong recognition skills. Studying English passively for years does not prepare learners for speaking. The meaning is correct, but the repetition makes the flow unnatural. Reference words help your speech move forward because they allow the listener to carry information from one sentence into the next. The The previous idea does not disappear. It remains active and becomes the foundation for further development. You can practice this by taking two separate sentences and connecting them. I started speaking aloud every morning. The practice made me more confident. A more natural version is, I started speaking aloud every morning, and this practice made me more confident. Another example, I used to stop whenever I forgot a word. Stopping destroyed my confidence. Connected version, I used to stop whenever I forgot a word, and that habit destroyed my confidence. Small changes like these make speech feel continuous. The sixth principle is to connect sentences through repeated key ideas. Natural speech often repeats important words or related meanings, but the repetition serves a purpose. It reminds the listener of the topic and creates unity. Suppose your central topic is daily practice. You might say, daily practice keeps English active in your mind. When the language remains active, words become easier to retrieve. Easier retrieval reduces hesitation, and less hesitation creates more confidence during conversation. Each sentence carries part of the previous meaning into the next. Daily practice leads to active language, which leads to retrieval, which leads to hesitation, which leads to confidence. This is called a thought chain. The final idea grows from the beginning through several connected steps. You can build thought chains deliberately. Start with a simple statement and ask what it causes. Regular speaking creates familiarity. What does familiarity cause? Familiarity reduces fear. What does reduced fear cause? Reduced fear allows faster responses. What do faster responses create? Faster responses make conversations feel more natural. The complete chain becomes, regular speaking creates familiarity. As the experience becomes familiar, fear begins to decrease. When fear is lower, learners can respond more quickly. Faster responses make conversations feel more natural and give learners greater confidence. One idea has produced 4 connected sentences. Another useful chain moves from problem to emotion, behavior, result, and solution. A learner fears mistakes. That fear creates hesitation. Hesitation causes the learner to avoid speaking. Avoidance prevents improvement. Therefore, the solution is not waiting for fear to disappear. It is practicing while fear is still present. This chain sounds powerful because every step follows logically. The 7th principle is to expand answers in layers rather than trying to create everything at once. Think of your answer as a series of circles moving outward from the center. The first layer is the direct answer. The second layer explains why. The third layer adds an example. The fourth layer describes the effect. The fifth layer shares the lesson or conclusion. If someone asks, "Do you enjoy learning English?" your first layer might be, "Yes, I enjoy learning English." The second layer adds why. "I enjoy it because it gives me access to more information and people." The third layer adds an example. For example, I can understand videos, books, and courses that were previously difficult for me. The fourth layer adds effect. This makes me feel more independent and confident. The fifth layer gives a conclusion. For that reason, English has become more than a subject for me. It has become a tool for personal growth. The answer grows naturally from a simple beginning. You did not need to plan the entire paragraph. You expanded it one layer at a time. This layered method is useful because it allows you to control length. In a quick conversation, you may stop after the second layer. In an interview or speaking exercise, you may continue through all 5 layers. The central idea remains stable while the level of detail changes. Many learners either say too little or attempt too much. They give one short sentence and stop, or they try to produce a complex paragraph and become lost. Layers provide a middle road. Begin simply, then expand only as far as you can control. The 8th principle is to use examples as bridges between abstract thoughts and real communication. Abstract words such as confidence, discipline, fluency, motivation, and consistency can be difficult to discuss for a long time because they are broad. Examples give them shape. If you say consistency is important, the idea is true but general. Add an example. For example, practicing for 15 minutes every day keeps English active, while studying for 3 hours once a month forces your brain to start again each time. The example gives the listener something concrete to imagine. Examples also help you continue speaking because they provide a situation, action, and result. Once you enter the example, your language can follow the events. You may describe what happened, what someone did, how they felt, and what changed. Personal examples are especially useful because the information already exists in your memory. You do not need to invent new content. Suppose you are explaining why simple English is powerful. You can say, I once tried to use difficult vocabulary during a conversation because I wanted to sound advanced. I spent so much time searching for the right words that I lost the main idea. Later, I answered the same question using simpler language, and the conversation became much easier. That experience taught me that clear English is stronger than complicated English that never reaches the listener. The example naturally supports the principle and gives the answer emotional truth. The ninth principle is to connect ideas through time. Time creates a clear direction because events naturally move from before to now and from now to the future. You can describe what you used to do, what changed, what you do now, and what result you expect. This structure is powerful for explaining improvement. In the past, I studied English mainly through grammar exercises. I understood many rules, but I could not use them quickly during conversation. A few months ago, I started practicing short spoken answers every day. At first, I hesitated a lot, but the process slowly became easier. Now I can organize my ideas more quickly, and in the future, I want to use this skill in longer conversations. Time gives the answer movement and makes progress visible. You can use this structure for almost any personal topic. Before, I was afraid of recording my voice. Then I decided to try for 1 minute a day. At first, I disliked listening to myself, but later I began noticing useful improvements. Now recording has become part of my routine. The answer feels natural because the timeline provides the path. The 10th principle is to use contrast to keep the listener interested and clarify meaning. Contrast creates movement between two sides of an idea. It can show past and present, expectation and reality, problem and solution, or knowledge and action. For example, I used to believe that fluency meant speaking very fast, but now I understand that fluency means speaking clearly and continuing even after a pause. The contrast immediately reveals growth. Many learners focus on learning more words, while fluent speakers focus on using the words they already have. The contrast makes the lesson memorable. Contrast also helps you extend an answer without leaving the main topic. After explaining one side, you naturally discuss the other. If someone asks whether studying alone is useful, you can say, studying alone is useful because it allows you to practice without pressure. However, it cannot fully prepare you for the unpredictability of real conversation. When you speak with another person, you must understand unexpected questions, respond in real time, and adjust your message. Therefore, both types of practice are necessary. The answer becomes balanced and complete because contrast created another branch connected to the same center. The 11th principle is to use repetition with development. Repeating a central idea can create strength, but each repetition should add something new. You might say, speaking practice builds confidence. It builds confidence because repeated action makes conversation feel more familiar. As that familiarity grows, fear loses some of its power. Confidence, therefore, is not a gift you wait for. It is a result you build through repetition. The main word appears several times, but each sentence develops its meaning. This is different from empty repetition. You are circling the idea while moving deeper. This technique is especially powerful in audiobook writing and motivational teaching because it gives the listener time to absorb an important truth. A learner may not fully understand the idea the first time. The second version clarifies it. The third version connects it to action. For example, you do not need more English before you begin speaking. You need to activate the English already inside you. Every time you use a familiar word in a new sentence, passive knowledge becomes active ability. The language was already there, but speaking teaches your mind how to reach it. The thought is repeated, clarified, and deepened. The 12th principle is to use repair as a connection rather than treating it as interruption. Many learners stop completely when a sentence becomes unclear. They believe correcting themselves breaks fluency. In reality, calm repair is part of fluent communication. You can say, I started learning English 3 years ago. Actually, it was almost 4 years ago. You can say, the experience was disappointing, or perhaps frustrating is the better word. You can say, I do not mean that grammar is unnecessary. What I mean is that grammar should support communication rather than prevent it. These repairs do not destroy the answer, they improve it while keeping the thought moving. Useful repair expressions include, let me say that more clearly. What I mean is, a better way to explain it is, actually, let me correct that, and in other words, when these expressions become familiar, mistakes feel less dangerous because you know the bridge has a repair system. Suppose you begin, English speaking is difficult because learners do not know grammar. Then you realize the statement is too broad. You can continue, let me explain that more clearly. Grammar may be part of the difficulty, but many learners already know enough grammar. Their bigger problem is using that knowledge quickly under pressure. Instead of becoming trapped by the first sentence, you used it as the beginning of a more accurate explanation. The 13th principle is to build anticipation. A strong speaker sometimes tells the listener that another point is coming. Phrases such as, there is another important reason. The most surprising part is, this leads to a deeper problem. Or, but there is one more thing to understand, create curiosity and give the next thought a clear entrance. Anticipation is useful during longer explanations because it signals structure. The listener knows that the speaker has not finished and understands how the next section relates to the previous one. For example, translation slows your response, but there is another problem. It also makes you dependent on sentence structures from your first language. This is why direct English thinking is not only about speed, it is also about learning to organize ideas in a more natural English order. The phrase, there is another problem, creates a bridge to a deeper point. You can use anticipation naturally without making every answer dramatic. Another reason is, a second example is, there is also a practical benefit. These simple phrases help both your mind and the listener follow the development. The 14th principle is to return regularly to the main idea. During a long answer, details can pull you away from the center. Returning phrases bring the listener back and remind your mind where the answer is going. You can say, this brings us back to the main point. The reason this matters is. So, in relation to speaking, or what all of this shows is, these expressions connect the details to the central message. Imagine you are discussing the fear of mistakes. You may explain classroom experiences, social pressure, perfectionism, and personal confidence. After several details, return. What all of this shows is that fear does not disappear simply because a learner studies more grammar. It decreases when the learner repeatedly experiences mistakes without allowing them to end the conversation. The return gives purpose to everything that came before it. The 15th principle is to know when the thought is complete. Connection does not mean continuing forever. A strong answer has movement, but it also has an ending. When the main idea has been stated, supported, illustrated, and concluded, adding more may weaken the message. Many learners continue because they are afraid that stopping will make the answer seem too short. They add unrelated details, repeat themselves without development, or finish with uncertainty. A clear conclusion is stronger. A conclusion may summarize the lesson. That is why daily speaking practice is more important than waiting for perfect confidence. It may state a personal decision. For this reason, I now focus on using English every day rather than only collecting new information. It may offer advice, so begin with one clear sentence, connect it to a reason, and allow the answer to grow naturally. The ending should feel like the final step of the same journey, not a sudden stop. Now consider a complete answer built with all these principles. Imagine the question is, why do learners freeze during English conversations? You might begin. Many learners freeze because they try to control too many parts of English at the same time. This is the center. Then add a reason. While listening to the question, they are already thinking about translation, grammar, vocabulary, pronunciation, and the listener's reaction. Add a consequence. Because their attention is divided, their mind becomes overloaded and even familiar words become difficult to retrieve. Add an example. For example, a learner may know how to answer a simple question about work, but under pressure, they begin searching for a perfect sentence and lose the words they already know. Add a contrast. The problem is not always a lack of knowledge. Often, it is too much mental control. Add a solution. A better approach is to begin with one simple idea, use a familiar opening phrase, and develop the answer through a reason and example. Add a conclusion. When the process becomes simpler, the mind remains calmer, and the English that was trapped inside can finally begin to move. This answer feels fluent because every sentence has a relationship with the central message. The speaker is not jumping between random facts. The answer grows in a controlled direction. Now imagine another question. How can I speak English for longer? A connected answer could be, to speak for longer, you should stop trying to invent many different ideas and learn how to develop one idea more deeply. Begin with a direct answer, then explain why you believe it. After that, add a personal example or describe a situation. You can then explain the result and finish with the lesson you learned. For example, if you are asked about your English routine, do not only say, "I practice every morning." Explain what you practice, why you chose that time, what difficulty you had before, and what improvement you have noticed. This method helps you speak longer without losing direction because every new sentence grows from the same central thought. Again, one idea becomes a complete answer through connection. To train this skill, begin with the one-sentence expansion exercise. Choose a simple sentence such as, "I want to improve my pronunciation." Add one reason. "I want to improve my pronunciation because I sometimes have to repeat myself." Add an example. For example, people occasionally misunderstand words when I speak too quickly. Add a result. This makes me feel less confident during conversation. Add an action. Therefore, I am practicing slowly and recording my voice. Add a conclusion. My goal is not to sound perfect, but to make my speech easier to understand. Practice with new sentences every day. I enjoy reading. I prefer working alone. Technology can help learners. Confidence grows through action. Each sentence contains the possibility of a larger answer. Another useful exercise is the connector challenge. Choose a topic and deliberately use one connector at a time. Begin with because, then continue with for example, then however, then as a result, and finally therefore. This trains different thought relationships. Topic: online learning. Online learning is useful because people can study from almost anywhere. For example, a learner in a small town can access lessons from teachers around the world. However, online learning can become passive when students only watch and never practice. As a result, they may understand the lesson without developing real ability. Therefore, learners should combine online study with active exercises, speaking, and feedback. The connectors guide the complete answer. You can also use the 30-second chain exercise. Start speaking about a topic and make sure every new sentence contains one word or idea connected to the previous sentence. If you say, "Practice creates confidence," the next sentence must develop practice or confidence. Confidence makes learners more willing to speak. The next sentence develops willingness or speaking. When learners speak more often, they discover which parts of English need improvement. The next sentence develops discovery or improvement. This discovery gives their practice a clearer direction. The chain continues naturally. Another exercise is the reason ladder. Start with a statement and ask why several times. I want to speak English fluently. Why? Because I want to communicate confidently. Why is confidence important? Because I want people to understand my real ideas. Why does that matter? Because when I cannot express myself, I feel that my personality becomes smaller. Why are you working on it now? Because I no longer want fear to control opportunities in my life. The final answer becomes emotionally powerful because you moved from a surface goal to a deeper reason. You can create an example ladder in the same way. Begin with a general idea, give one example, add a detail, describe the result, and explain the lesson. Speaking aloud is useful. For example, I practice by answering one question every morning. Yesterday, I explained what I wanted to achieve during the week. At first, I paused often, but after repeating the answer, the sentences became smoother. This showed me that repetition can quickly turn a difficult answer into a familiar one. The detail creates movement and makes the abstract advice believable. Another exercise is past, present, future. Choose one topic and connect 3 time periods. In the past, I memorized vocabulary without using it. Now I create personal sentences and speak them aloud. In the future, I want to use those words in real conversations. This structure is simple, but it helps you speak with direction. You can expand it. In the past, I believed that knowing the meaning of a word was enough. However, during conversations, I often could not remember the words I had studied. Now I use every new word in several personal sentences and review it through speaking. In the future, I want to organize my vocabulary around real situations, such as work, travel, and daily conversation. This will help me retrieve the language when I actually need it. The timeline allows the thought to grow naturally. You should also practice listener questions. After recording an answer, imagine what a listener might ask next. Did you say, "My routine changed"? The listener may ask, "How did it change?" Did you say, "The method was effective"? The listener may ask, "What result did you notice?" Did you say, "The experience was difficult"? The listener may ask, "What made it difficult?" Add the answers to your recording. This practice trains you to develop thoughts before the listener needs to interrupt. It also makes your answers more complete. Another powerful habit is to summarize your final message in one sentence after a longer explanation. This forces you to reconnect everything to the center. You might say, "So the main lesson is that speaking longer does not require more topics. It requires stronger connections between the thoughts you already have." That final sentence gives the answer unity. As you practice, remember that connection does not require advanced grammar. You can create beautiful flow with simple language. I was nervous, but I answered. My answer was not perfect, yet the person understood me. Because I continued, I became calmer. That experience showed me that courage grows after action. The vocabulary is accessible, but the thought moves clearly. Do not delay this skill until your English becomes advanced. Connection is what helps English become advanced. When you can organize simple language into meaningful chains, you gain the foundation needed for longer and more complex expression. You must also accept that some pauses will remain. Natural flow does not mean speaking without breathing or thinking. It means the pauses do not destroy the connection. You may pause after a sentence, choose the next relationship, and continue. A calm pause can support thought. Panic is what breaks the bridge. During a pause, ask one simple question. Do I need a reason, an example, a contrast, a result, or a conclusion? This question gives your mind a limited set of useful directions. You no longer search through every possible idea. Suppose you say, "I prefer learning English through stories." During the pause, choose a reason. I prefer stories because they help me remember vocabulary in context. Choose an example. For example, when a new word appears inside an emotional scene, I remember both the word and the situation. Choose a contrast. In contrast, isolated word lists often disappear from my memory quickly. Choose a conclusion. That is why I try to learn language through meaningful situations rather than separate definitions. The pause became a decision point, not a failure. You should also separate connection from speed. At first, building connected answers may make you speak more slowly because you are consciously choosing relationships. This is healthy. You are constructing a reliable path. With repetition, the path becomes faster. Do not compare your early connected practice with someone else's automatic fluency. Their path may have been used thousands of times. Your task is to strengthen yours through patient repetition. When one structure becomes familiar, add another. Begin with point, reason, example, then add contrast. Later, add consequence and conclusion. Gradually, your answers become richer without becoming unstable. The English thought bridge becomes powerful when the first sentence no longer feels alone. It knows how to call the next thought. A reason appears, an example follows, a result grows from the example, a lesson rises from the result. Your English begins to feel like one connected voice rather than a box of separate sentences. This is the moment when learners often notice a major change. They stop measuring speaking only by how many advanced words they know. They begin measuring it by how clearly they can carry an idea from beginning to end. They understand that fluency is not a performance of vocabulary. It is the movement of meaning. You may still use simple words, but those words will have direction. You may still pause, but your pause will lead somewhere. You may forget a word, but the thought will find another route. You may begin with one sentence, but that sentence will open a chain. At the end of this chapter, remember this golden truth. English flows when thoughts stop standing alone. One sentence becomes powerful when it creates the next sentence. One idea becomes clear when a reason supports it. One reason becomes believable when an example makes it real. One example becomes meaningful when you explain its result. One result becomes memorable when you reveal the lesson. This is how you create natural spoken English. You do not force a river to appear by throwing random drops of water onto the ground. You create a channel that allows the water to move in one direction. Your thoughts are the water and connection is the channel. Without connection, even strong vocabulary becomes scattered. With connection, simple vocabulary can carry deep and intelligent meaning. From today, do not end your practice after producing one correct sentence. Ask what that sentence needs next. Give it a reason. Give it an example. Show a contrast. Explain a result. Return to the central message and close it clearly. Do this until one thought begins inviting another without conscious effort. Do this until your answers grow naturally instead of being forced. Do this until silence no longer feels like the end, but simply a moment in which the next connection is being chosen. Every connected sentence strengthens the bridge. Every completed answer strengthens the bridge. Every thought chain teaches your mind that English does not need to arrive as a perfect paragraph. It can unfold one meaningful step at a time. One day you will begin answering a question and notice that you are no longer fighting for every sentence. The first idea will create a reason. The reason will produce an example. The example will remind you of an experience. The experience will reveal a lesson. Before you realize it, you will have spoken for a full minute with clarity and direction. You will not have memorized the answer. You will have followed the connection. That is when English begins to flow naturally from your mind, across the bridge, and into your voice. Chapter 6. Train your brain until speaking becomes automatic. At this stage, you already understand that fluent speaking does not come only from knowing grammar, memorizing vocabulary, or watching more lessons. It comes from building a strong connection between your thoughts and your spoken English. But understanding this idea is only the beginning. The bridge becomes powerful when you use it repeatedly until your brain no longer needs to build every sentence with great effort. Automatic speaking does not mean speaking without thought. It means that the basic parts of speaking become familiar enough that your mind can focus on meaning instead of construction. You no longer spend all your energy deciding how to begin, where to place every word, or which connector to use. Familiar phrases, sentence structures, and thought patterns begin appearing naturally because you have practiced them many times. Think about the first time you learned to type on a keyboard. At the beginning, you had to search for every letter. Your eyes moved slowly, your fingers hesitated, and even a short sentence required concentration. After enough practice, your fingers began moving automatically. You still decided what you wanted to write, but you no longer needed to think consciously about every key. Speaking English develops in the same way. Many learners want automatic fluency, but they practice in a way that never allows automaticity to grow. They constantly change topics, collect new vocabulary, and search for advanced expressions, yet they rarely repeat the same useful structures enough times. Every practice session feels completely new, so the brain must continue starting from zero. Repetition is not a sign that your learning is weak. Repetition is the process that turns knowledge into ability. When you use the phrase, "the main reason is," once you understand it. When you use it in 10 different answers, it becomes familiar. When you use it in 50 real speaking situations, it begins appearing before you search for it. The same is true for phrases such as "from my experience." For example, "what I mean is," and "that is why." Automatic English is built from language you have used often enough to trust. The goal is not to memorize entire speeches. Memorized speeches often disappear when the question changes. Instead, you should automate flexible building blocks that can carry many different thoughts. For example, the structure "I believe because" can be used for almost any topic. I believe daily practice is important because repetition keeps English active. I believe confidence grows through action because fear becomes weaker when we face it. I believe simple English is powerful because clear meaning matters more than difficult vocabulary. The topic changes, but the structure remains reliable. This is how you reduce mental pressure. Instead of inventing every part of the sentence, your brain uses a familiar frame and fills it with a new idea. Another important part of automatic speaking is retrieval. You may understand hundreds of words, but speaking depends on how quickly you can retrieve them. A word that remains inside a notebook cannot help you during a conversation. It must become connected to real situations, personal experiences, and spoken sentences. To activate a new word, do not simply read its definition. Use it aloud. Connect it to your life. Repeat it in different sentence patterns. Suppose you learn the word hesitate. You can say, I hesitate when I worry about grammar. I used to hesitate before answering simple questions. Daily practice helps me hesitate less. Even when I hesitate, I try to continue speaking. The word now has several paths inside your mind. During a future conversation, it has a better chance of appearing quickly. Automatic speaking also grows through topic repetition. Many learners think they should never practice the same question twice, but repeating a topic allows the brain to improve the path. The first time you answer, "Why are you learning English?" you may pause and search for words. The second time, your main idea becomes clearer. The third time, you may add a better example. After several repetitions, the answer no longer feels dangerous because the thought route is familiar. This does not mean repeating the exact same words every time. Each repetition can become more natural. You are not memorizing the answer, you are training access. A useful exercise is repeated speaking. Choose one question and answer it for 1 minute. Rest for a short time, then answer it again without reading anything. On the second attempt, focus on clearer connections. On the third attempt, speak more calmly and naturally. You will often notice that your English improves within the same practice session. The first attempt reveals the difficulty. The second builds the road. The third begins creating automatic movement. Another useful method is controlled shadowing. Listen to a short sentence from a fluent speaker and repeat it with the same rhythm and natural grouping. Do not only copy individual sounds. Notice how words connect and where the speaker pauses. For example, you may hear, "The main reason I changed my routine was that I needed more speaking practice." Repeat the whole phrase several times, then change the content. "The main reason I started recording myself was that I wanted clearer pronunciation." "The main reason I practice every morning is that my mind feels fresher." This turns one sentence into a reusable speaking pattern. However, repetition must remain meaningful. Speaking the same sentence without attention may improve pronunciation slightly, but automatic communication requires active variation. Keep the structure and change the thought. This teaches your brain that the pattern is flexible. You must also practice under light pressure. Speaking alone is the safest place to begin, but real conversation contains surprise. Someone may interrupt, ask a follow-up question, or change the topic. Your bridge must become strong enough to work when you cannot prepare everything. Begin by using random questions. Write several topics on small pieces of paper. Choose one without looking and begin speaking within 5 seconds. You can also use a question list and select one randomly. The purpose is to train your brain to begin with a simple structure instead of waiting for a perfect answer. When the question appears, do not panic. Use a familiar opening. "I think the main point is, from my experience," or "there are 2 reasons." Then follow the thought step by step. Automatic speaking does not require instant perfection. It requires a reliable first move. You should also train recovery. Real fluency includes forgetting words, correcting sentences, and changing direction. If you only practice perfect prepared answers, one mistake may still destroy your confidence. Your brain must learn that communication can survive problems. During practice, continue when you forget a word. Describe it. Use a simpler phrase. Say, "I cannot remember the exact word, but it means." If your sentence becomes unclear, say, "Let me explain that again." These phrases should become automatic too. A strong speaker is not someone who never faces a broken sentence. A strong speaker knows how to repair the sentence without abandoning the conversation. Another powerful habit is daily micro-practice. You do not need a long speaking session every day. 10 focused minutes can create strong results when the practice is active and consistent. You might spend 2 minutes describing your surroundings, 2 minutes answering one question, 2 minutes repeating and changing a useful pattern, 2 minutes summarizing something you heard, and 2 minutes correcting one weak area. This routine trains direct thinking, sentence building, retrieval, connection, and self-correction. The power comes from daily contact. When English is used only once a week, the path becomes cold. Your brain must rebuild confidence every time. When you use English every day, even briefly, the bridge remains active. Consistency teaches the brain that English is not an emergency, it becomes a normal part of life. Another important step is reducing unnecessary difficulty. Learners sometimes try to automate advanced sentences before basic structures are stable. This creates frustration. Begin with the language you use most often. Automate how you introduce yourself, describe your routine, explain your goals, give an opinion, disagree politely, tell a simple story, ask for clarification, and describe a problem. These situations appear regularly, so strong patterns in these areas give immediate benefits. Once common situations become easier, your mind has more energy for unfamiliar topics. You should also practice complete responses rather than isolated sentences. One sentence may become automatic, but real speaking requires continuation. Use the thought pattern from the previous chapters: point, reason, example, result, and conclusion. For example, I prefer practicing English in the morning. The main reason is that my mind feels clearer at that time. For example, I can answer questions more quickly before I become busy with work. As a result, morning practice feels more focused and consistent. That is why I try to protect at least 15 minutes for English after I wake up. Repeat this structure with new topics until the sequence feels natural. Automaticity also depends on emotion. If every practice session is filled with fear and harsh self-judgment, the brain may connect English with danger. This makes retrieval slower. You must create practice experiences where mistakes are allowed and continuation is rewarded. After recording yourself, do not ask only, "How many mistakes did I make?" Ask, "Did I communicate the idea? Did I continue after a pause? Did I use a clear reason? Did I give an example?" These questions teach your brain to value movement and clarity. Accuracy matters, but accuracy develops best when communication remains alive. Correct one or two important mistakes after speaking, then repeat the answer. Do not stop every sentence during practice. Constant interruption trains fear. Complete the thought first, review it afterward, and then speak again with the correction. This creates a healthy cycle. Speak, notice, improve, repeat. Another major principle is frequency before complexity. A simple structure used every day becomes stronger than an advanced structure used once. Learners often feel attracted to rare idioms and complicated expressions, but common phrases create most real conversations. Master the language you repeatedly need. Make it fast, clear, and flexible. Then add more advanced language slowly. Your goal is not to impress the listener with difficult vocabulary. Your goal is to make your meaning available without unnecessary delay. You will know automatic speaking is developing when small changes begin appearing. You start common sentences without translating. Useful connectors appear more quickly. You recover after forgetting a word. You answer familiar questions with less fear. Your pauses become shorter, and your attention shifts from grammar toward the message. These changes may seem small, but together they represent a major transformation. The bridge is no longer something you must consciously construct during every conversation. Parts of it have become permanent. Do not expect every topic to become automatic at the same speed. You may speak comfortably about your daily routine but struggle with a complex opinion. You may explain personal experiences easily but hesitate during professional discussions. Automaticity grows in areas you practice. This is why your practice should gradually expand. Begin with familiar topics, then add new situations while continuing to use the same reliable thought structures. When a topic is unfamiliar, the path may slow down, but the basic bridge remains available. You can still begin with an opinion, give a reason, add an example, clarify your meaning, and conclude. The content is new, but the speaking process is familiar. This is the real value of training. You are not preparing for one conversation, you are building a system that can support many conversations. At the end of this chapter, remember this golden truth. Automatic English is not created by waiting until you feel ready. It is created by using the same useful paths until your brain no longer treats them as new. Repeat important structures. Repeat common topics. Repeat new vocabulary in personal sentences. Repeat your answers with clearer connections. Repeat the act of continuing after mistakes. Every repetition makes the bridge stronger and faster. At first, you consciously choose each step. Later, the steps begin choosing themselves. Your mind recognizes the situation, opens a familiar path, and sends the thought forward. You may still pause, correct yourself, or search for a word, but the conversation no longer feels like a wall. The English inside you begins arriving when you need it. Not because you memorized every possible sentence, not because you removed every mistake, but because you trained the road between thought and speech until movement became familiar. That is how fluent speaking becomes automatic. One useful sentence at a time. One repeated answer at a time. One real conversation at a time. Chapter 7. Cross the bridge every day until English becomes part of you. You have now discovered why your mind goes blank, how clear thoughts create clear English, how to reduce translation, how fluent speakers follow hidden speaking paths, how connected ideas create natural flow, and how repetition slowly turns difficult speaking into automatic ability. But there is one final truth that decides whether everything you have learned becomes a permanent part of your life or remains only another interesting lesson. You must cross the bridge every day. A bridge becomes useful only when people walk across it. It may be beautifully designed, carefully constructed, and strong enough to carry great weight, but if nobody uses it, it connects nothing in real life. Your English works in the same way. You may understand every principle in this book, recognize useful sentence structures, and know exactly why you hesitate, but your speaking will change only when your thoughts repeatedly travel across the bridge into spoken English. This final chapter is not about discovering another secret technique. It is about turning everything you have learned into a way of living. It is about making English something you use regularly rather than something you study occasionally. It is about building a relationship with the language strong enough that it remains active even when motivation is low. Progress feels slow and confidence has not fully arrived. Many learners begin with great excitement. They create a large plan, collect books, download applications, save hundreds of videos, and promise themselves that they will practice for several hours every day. For a short time, they work intensely. Then life becomes busy, their energy changes, or the results do not appear as quickly as they expected. The routine becomes smaller, the practice becomes irregular, and eventually English returns to the background of their lives. The problem is not always laziness. Often the plan was too heavy to survive ordinary life. It depended on constant motivation, perfect conditions, and large amounts of free time. When those conditions disappeared, the plan collapsed. A stronger English journey is not built around extraordinary days. It is built around ordinary days. It survives busy mornings, tired evenings, difficult weeks, and moments when you do not feel inspired. The English thought bridge becomes permanent when your practice is simple enough to continue and meaningful enough to matter. You do not need to cross the bridge for hours every day. You need to cross it often enough that the road never becomes unfamiliar. 10 focused minutes of active English can be more valuable than 1 hour of passive study. During those 10 minutes, you can describe your day, answer one question, summarize something you heard, repeat a useful pattern, and express one personal opinion. These activities force your thoughts to move into English. They keep the connection alive. The first principle of this final chapter is to make English visible inside your daily life. Do not wait for a special study session before using the language. Connect it to actions that already happen every day. When you wake up, describe how you feel and what you need to do. While preparing breakfast, explain the process. Before beginning work, state your main goals. During a break, summarize what you have completed. At night, reflect on one good moment and one difficult moment from your day. These small moments may appear unimportant, but they teach your brain that English belongs to real life. The language is no longer limited to notebooks, classes, and videos. It begins entering your routines, decisions, emotions, and memories. You might think, I slept later than I planned, so I need to organize my morning carefully. Later, you might say, I completed the most difficult task first, and that made the rest of the day feel easier. At night, you might reflect, today I became frustrated because something did not go as planned, but I learned that I need to be more patient. These are not artificial practice sentences. They are your life moving through English. When English begins carrying real meaning, it becomes easier to remember because it is connected to who you are. A sentence about your own experience has more emotional weight than a random example from a grammar book. A phrase used during a real decision is more likely to return during future conversation. The second principle is to create a minimum daily promise. This is the smallest amount of English you will use even on your busiest or most difficult day. The promise must be so realistic that excuses lose their power. Your minimum promise might be 1 minute of speaking. It might be answering one question aloud. It might be summarizing one short paragraph. It might be creating 3 personal sentences with one useful phrase. The amount is not the most important part. The important part is protecting the identity of being someone who uses English every day. On strong days, you may practice for 30 minutes or more. On weekdays, you may complete only the minimum, but the bridge remains open. You do not allow one difficult day to become one silent week. This daily promise changes your psychology. Instead of asking, "Do I feel motivated enough to practice today?" you ask, "When will I complete today's English?" The decision is no longer whether you will practice. The decision is only when and how. Consistency becomes easier when the action is attached to a stable part of your day. You might practice after breakfast, during your evening walk, before opening social media, or before going to bed. The existing habit becomes a reminder. You no longer depend only on memory or motivation. For example, after making your morning tea, answer one English question. After lunch, describe something you learned. Before sleeping, record a 1-minute reflection. When the practice is connected to a regular action, it becomes part of the rhythm of life. The third principle is to practice production before consumption. Many learners begin by opening a video, podcast, or lesson. They receive English for a long time, feel productive, and finish without producing a single sentence. Their understanding may improve, but the bridge from thought to speech remains unused. A powerful daily rule is to speak before you watch. Before consuming English content, produce something. Describe your mood, answer a question, or summarize what you remember from yesterday. Even 2 minutes of production activates the bridge. Then, after watching or listening, produce again. Summarize the main idea, explain what you agreed with, mention one new expression, or connect the lesson to your life. This turns passive input into active ability. Suppose you watch a video about confidence. Before watching, say what confidence means to you. After watching, explain what new idea you learned. Then give a personal example. The video is no longer only entertainment or information. It becomes material for thought and speech. This cycle is powerful. Produce, receive, produce again. The first production reveals what you can already say. The input gives you new language and ideas. The final production helps your mind use what it received. Each step strengthens a different part of the bridge. The fourth principle is to repeat important topics until they become part of your active identity. You should be able to discuss the areas that matter most in your life: your background, work, family, goals, challenges, interests, opinions, daily routine, and future plans. These topics appear repeatedly in real conversations. If you practice them only once, the language may remain weak. If you return to them regularly, your answers become clearer, more flexible, and more personal. Begin with the topic of your English journey. Explain why you started, what has been difficult, what methods you have tried, what progress you have noticed, and what you want to achieve next. Do not memorize one fixed speech. Speak about the topic several times and allow the language to change. The first time, your answer may be simple. The second time, you may remember a useful example. The third time, you may express an emotion more clearly. The fourth time, you may organize the story in a stronger sequence. The fifth time, the answer begins to feel natural. Every repetition moves the language from preparation toward ownership. When language becomes yours, you no longer feel that you are borrowing English from a textbook. The words begin carrying your experiences. The sentence patterns begin supporting your personality. Your English voice becomes more recognizable. The fifth principle is to measure the right kind of progress. Many learners judge themselves only by speed, accent, or the number of mistakes they make. These measurements can hide real improvement. Perhaps you still make grammar mistakes, but you recover more quickly. Perhaps your pronunciation is not perfect, but people understand you more easily. Perhaps you still pause, but your pauses are shorter. Perhaps you forget words, but you now explain them another way. Perhaps you feel nervous, but you speak anyway. These are powerful signs of growth. Progress may also appear as stronger thought organization. You begin answers with a clear main point. You give reasons without losing direction. You add examples naturally. You conclude instead of stopping suddenly. These changes show that the bridge is becoming more stable. Keep a small record of these improvements. At the end of each week, ask yourself what became easier. Did you answer more quickly? Did you use a phrase without translating? Did you complete complete a longer recording? Did you speak with someone despite feeling nervous? This record protects your motivation because the mind often notices failures more easily than progress. Without evidence, you may believe nothing is changing. A weekly reflection allows you to see improvements that daily emotion may hide. You can record the same question once every month and compare the answers. Choose a question such as, "Why am I learning English?" or "What is the biggest lesson I have learned this year?" Speak for 2 minutes without reading. Save the recording and repeat the question after several weeks. When you listen to the older version, you may notice longer pauses, weaker connections, or less confident delivery. The new version may still be imperfect, but the difference will reveal how far you have traveled. The sixth principle is to make peace with slow progress. Fluency does not grow in a straight line. Some days English feels easy, words appear quickly, sentences connect, and confidence rises. On other days, even simple thoughts feel difficult. You may feel as if you have lost your ability. You have not lost it. Your energy, stress, sleep, topic familiarity, and emotional condition all affect speaking. One difficult day does not erase months of practice. It only shows that language performance changes like every other human ability. Do not turn a weak speaking day into a personal judgment. Say, "Today felt difficult, but I still use the bridge." Even a weak crossing strengthens the habit of continuing. The learners who eventually become confident are not always the learners who feel motivated every day. They are the learners who continue through the days when English feels slow, uncomfortable, and imperfect. This is where identity becomes stronger than emotion. You continue because using English is now part of who you are, not because every practice session feels successful. The seventh principle is to build courage gradually. Speaking alone is useful, but your bridge must eventually carry thoughts toward other people. Real communication includes unpredictability, pressure, misunderstanding, and emotional exposure. You cannot prepare for all of this through private practice alone. However, you do not need to enter the most frightening situation immediately. Build courage in levels. Begin by speaking alone, then record yourself. Next, send a short voice message to someone supportive. After that, have a brief conversation with a friend, tutor, or language partner. Later, join a group discussion, speak during a meeting, or answer questions without preparation. Each level adds slightly more pressure. Your brain learns that English can survive real interaction. The fear does not always disappear before the action, but every successful experience teaches the mind that speaking is not as dangerous as it once believed. The first real conversation may feel uncomfortable. Your sentences may become simpler. Your vocabulary may shrink, and your mind may move more slowly. This is normal. Pressure reveals which parts of the bridge are automatic and which parts still need support. Do not judge the conversation only by mistakes. Ask whether you stayed present, communicated your main idea, and continued when something went wrong. These are the victories that build real confidence. The eighth principle is to collect useful language from your own speaking problems. Instead of learning random vocabulary, notice what you repeatedly want to say but cannot express. Perhaps you often need language for giving opinions. Learn and practice phrases such as, "From my perspective, the way I see it, and I understand that point, but..." Perhaps you struggle to explain causes and results. Practice, "This happened because, as a result, and one consequence was." Perhaps you need language for telling stories. Practice, "At first, a little later, what happened next was, and in the end." Perhaps you struggle to repair sentences. Activate, "What I mean is, let me explain that differently, and I cannot remember the exact word, but..." Your mistakes and pauses are not only problems, they are information. They show you exactly what your bridge needs next. After a conversation or recording, write down one moment where you became stuck. Ask what language would have helped. Learn that language, create personal examples, and use it in your next practice. This turns every difficulty into construction material. The ninth principle is to build an English environment that invites use rather than only exposure. Seeing and hearing English around you can help, but the environment should encourage you to respond. Change some daily notes or reminders into English. Keep a list of speaking questions where you can see it. Place useful sentence beginnings near your desk. Follow content that makes you think and speak, not only scroll. Join spaces where English communication happens regularly. Your environment influences which habits feel natural. If English is hidden inside a closed book, using it requires a deliberate decision. If useful questions, phrases, and opportunities are visible, the bridge receives more invitations. For example, keep 5 questions near your workspace. What am I working on? Why does this matter? What problem am I facing? What have I learned? And what will I do next? Answer 1 question during a break. The environment now produces direct English thinking. You can also create themed days. On one day, focus on opinions. On another, practice storytelling. On another, describe problems and solutions. On another, summarize content. This gives variety while keeping the practice structured. The 10th principle is to protect your English from perfectionism. Perfectionism often appears disguised as ambition. You tell yourself that you want to speak correctly, sound advanced, and avoid embarrassment. These goals seem positive, but when they become extreme, they stop the bridge. Perfectionism whispers, "Do not speak until the sentence is ready." It says, "Do not use a simple word when there may be a better one." It says, "If you make a mistake, the conversation is a failure." Under these conditions, speaking becomes too dangerous. A healthier standard is effective communication with gradual improvement. During conversation, focus on delivering meaning. Afterward, choose 1 or 2 areas to improve, then repeat the message more clearly. This approach allows fluency and accuracy to grow together. Communication stays alive and correction remains useful. Remember that fluent speakers also change sentences, forget words, repeat themselves, and choose imperfect expressions. The difference is that they do not treat every small problem as a reason to stop. Your goal is not to create flawless English before it leaves your mouth. Your goal is to guide your thought toward the listener and repair the message when necessary. The 11th principle is to make your English emotionally meaningful. Language becomes stronger when it carries things you genuinely care about. Do not practice only with lifeless questions that have no connection to your world. Speak about your dreams, fears, values, mistakes, relationships, work, and future. Explain what makes you proud, what you wish you had done differently, what lesson changed your thinking, and what kind of person you want to become. When the thought matters, your mind searches more deeply for a way to express it. The practice becomes more memorable because the language is connected to emotion. You might speak about a moment when you almost gave up on English. Explain what happened, how you felt, why you continued, and what you learned. You might describe the opportunity you hope English will create. Explain where you want to go, who you want to communicate with, and how your life may change. These answers build more than fluency. They build your English identity. There is a difference between practicing English and living through English. Practice asks you to create sentences. Living through English asks you to use those sentences to understand and express yourself. The 12th principle is to become your own supportive teacher. Many learners speak to themselves with a level of cruelty they would never use with another person. After one mistake, they say, "My English is terrible." After one difficult conversation, they say, "I will never become fluent." These statements damage the learning environment inside the mind. A supportive teacher does not ignore mistakes. A supportive teacher sees them accurately and responds with direction. Instead of saying, "I failed," say, "I lost the main idea because I tried to build a sentence that was too complicated." Instead of saying, "I cannot speak," say, "I need more practice answering unexpected questions." Instead of saying, "I always forget words," say, "I need to activate this vocabulary through personal speaking." Specific problems can be trained. General attacks create helplessness. Speak to yourself in a way that keeps the bridge open. Say, "That answer was difficult, but I completed it." Say, "I paused, but I continued." Say, "This sentence was unclear, so I will explain it again." These statements create responsibility without shame. The 13th principle is to focus on usefulness. You do not need to learn every word, expression, or grammar structure at the same time. Choose the English that helps you communicate in the situations most important to you. A learner who needs English for work should practice meetings, explanations, requests, updates, problems, and professional opinions. A learner who wants social confidence should practice introductions, stories, questions, reactions, and follow-up conversation. A learner preparing to travel should practice directions, transportation, accommodation, shopping, and emergencies. Useful English becomes active faster because you have reasons to use it. Your mind recognizes the situations where it belongs. Create a small language bank for your real life. Include phrases you repeatedly need but keep the bank manageable. Use every phrase in personal spoken sentences. Review it through real situations rather than reading it silently. The goal is not to own the largest collection. The goal is to have language that appears when the moment arrives. The 14th principle is to turn every day into a source of speaking material. You never need to say, "I have nothing to practice." Your life is constantly producing topics. Describe a decision you made, explain a problem you solved, talk about something you observed, summarize a conversation, share an opinion about a video, describe what you are looking forward to, explain what disappointed you, reflect on one thing you would change. The material is already available. You only need to move it across the bridge. A normal day can produce many speaking questions. What was the most difficult part of today? What made me feel grateful? Did I change my opinion about anything? What did I avoid? What do I need to do differently tomorrow? These questions train language and self-awareness together. English becomes the tool through which you examine your own life. The 15th principle is to continue expanding the bridge without forgetting its foundation. As your English grows, you will learn advanced vocabulary, complex grammar, natural idioms, and more sophisticated ways to express ideas. This growth is valuable, but never abandon clarity. Advanced English should strengthen your message, not hide it. Use a difficult word when it expresses the meaning more accurately, not only because it sounds impressive. Use a complex sentence when the thought genuinely needs it, not because simple language feels too basic. The foundation remains the same: one clear thought, one reliable path, meaningful connections, and the courage to continue. A strong bridge can carry heavier language because its foundation is stable. Without that foundation, advanced vocabulary only increases pressure. You should also continue returning to the basic patterns that built your fluency: point, reason, example, past, present, future, problem, cause, solution, experience, emotion, lesson. These structures remain useful at every level. The language inside them can become more advanced, but the thought paths remain clear. The 16th principle is to allow your English voice to be different from someone else's. You may admire fluent speakers, teachers, actors, or public figures. You can learn from their pronunciation, rhythm, vocabulary, and structure, but your goal is not to become a copy. Your English voice should carry your personality, experiences, humor, values, and way of seeing the world. It may not sound exactly like a native speaker, and it does not need to. Clear, confident, natural communication is more important than losing every sign of your background. Your accent is not proof that you have failed. An accent simply shows that your voice has traveled through more than one language. Work on pronunciation so people understand you easily, but do not allow the search for imitation to silence your real voice. The English thought bridge was built so that your thoughts could reach the world, not so that you could hide who you are. The 17th principle is to accept that fluency is not a final destination where all difficulty disappears. Even advanced speakers encounter unfamiliar topics, forget vocabulary, misunderstand questions, and struggle to express complex emotions. Fluency does not remove every challenge. It gives you the tools and confidence to move through challenges. You learn to ask for clarification. You explain a missing word. You reorganize an unclear thought. You admit uncertainty. You slow down when necessary. You keep communication alive. This is why fluency is better understood as freedom. It is the freedom to participate even when your English is not perfect. It is the freedom to express a real opinion, tell an important story, ask for help, create a connection, and continue after a mistake. The bridge gives you access, not perfection. At the beginning of this book, you may have believed that your greatest problem was a lack of vocabulary or grammar. You may have thought that one more course, one more list, or one more rule would finally make speaking easy. Now you understand that knowledge needs movement. Your thoughts need structure. Your language needs retrieval. Your sentences need connection. Your brain needs repetition. Your confidence needs action. And the bridge needs daily use. This is the complete journey of the English thought bridge. You begin by understanding why your mind becomes blank. You reduce the pressure that overloads your speaking. You organize your thoughts before forcing them into language. You weaken translation by connecting meaning directly to English. You follow reliable speaking paths instead of inventing every sentence from nothing. You connect thoughts until answers flow. You repeat those paths until they become automatic. Finally, you use them consistently until English becomes a living part of you. Do not expect the change to happen in one dramatic moment. It will appear through small moments that gradually become normal. You will answer a question before translation begins. You will forget a word and explain it another way. You will speak for 1 minute without realizing how much time has passed. You will make a mistake and continue calmly. You will express an opinion that once felt too complicated. You will hear your own voice and notice that it sounds more confident. These moments are the evidence that the bridge is becoming part of your mind. One day you will enter a conversation and notice something surprising. You are no longer standing outside English trying to force your way inside. You are already using it. The language is carrying your thought while the thought is still developing. You are listening, reacting, clarifying, and connecting without controlling every word. You may still make mistakes, but they will no longer define the experience. You may still pause, but the pause will not feel like failure. You may still search for language, but you will trust yourself to find another route. That is when English begins to feel like freedom. Your goal is not to wait for that day passively. Your goal is to create it through today's crossing. Speak one thought today. Connect it to a reason. Give one example. Explain one feeling. Tell one small story. Summarize one lesson. Record 1 minute. Continue after one mistake. Every action places another step beneath your feet. Do not underestimate the power of one daily crossing. A single sentence may feel small, but repeated sentences become a habit. A habit becomes an ability. An ability becomes confidence. Confidence creates more action. More action creates stronger fluency. This is how transformation happens, not through one perfect performance, but through thousands of ordinary moments in which you choose to use the bridge. When motivation disappears, cross it briefly. When confidence falls, cross it slowly. When you make mistakes, cross it imperfectly. When progress feels invisible, cross it faithfully. The bridge does not demand perfection, it demands movement. At the end of this final chapter, hold on to one golden truth. English becomes part of you when you stop treating it as information you are collecting and begin treating it as a voice you are using. You do not need permission to use that voice. You do not need perfect grammar before expressing a real idea. You do not need an enormous vocabulary before having a meaningful conversation. You do not need to sound like another person before your English has value. You need one clear thought, enough courage to begin, and enough patience to continue. Your mind already contains experiences worth sharing. Your heart already contains emotions worth expressing. Your life already contains stories worth telling. The bridge now gives those things a road into English. Walk across it every day until the path feels familiar. Use it when you are alone. Use it when you are uncertain. Use it when you are nervous. Use it in small conversations and important moments. Use it until English no longer feels like a wall standing in front of your thoughts. Eventually, you will stop asking, "How do I translate this into English?" You will begin asking, "How can I express this clearly?" Then, one day, even that question will disappear. The thought will appear, the path will open, and your English voice will carry it forward. That is the moment when the bridge is no longer only something you built. It has become part of who you are. You began this journey believing that fluent English was hidden somewhere outside you, perhaps inside another grammar book, another vocabulary list, another course, or another perfect method. You thought you needed to collect more before you were finally ready to speak, but now you understand the deeper truth. Much of the English you need is already inside your mind. The real challenge was learning how to reach it, organize it, and carry it into your voice. That is what the English Thought Bridge was created to help you do. You learned that your mind does not go blank because you are unintelligent or incapable. It goes blank because too many thoughts, rules, fears, and expectations try to cross at the same time. You learn to reduce that pressure by choosing one clear idea and allowing it to move step by step. You learn to build the thought before building the sentence, because clear English begins with clear meaning. You learn to stop forcing complete sentences through translation and to connect real situations, feelings, images, and experiences directly to English. You discovered the hidden paths fluent speakers use, a main point leading to a reason opening an example creating a result, and a result revealing a final lesson. You learned that fluency is not created by throwing random sentences into a conversation. It grows when thoughts connect naturally and every sentence gives the next one a direction. You learned that repetition is not boring or weak. Repetition is what turns difficult language into familiar language, and familiar language into automatic speech. Most importantly, you learned that the bridge becomes real only when you cross it, not once. Not only when you feel confident, not only when your grammar feels perfect, but every day. Your English voice will not appear fully formed in one dramatic moment. It will grow through ordinary acts of courage. It will grow when you answer one question aloud. It will grow when you describe your day, summarize an idea, explain a feeling, or continue speaking after forgetting a word. It will grow every time you choose communication over perfection. There will still be difficult days. Sometimes the words will come slowly. Sometimes a familiar phrase will disappear. Sometimes you will compare yourself with another speaker and feel that your progress is too small. In those moments, remember that one weak conversation does not erase your growth. One mistake does not destroy the bridge. One pause does not mean you have failed. The bridge becomes stronger precisely because you continue crossing it while it is still imperfect. Do not wait until fear disappears before you speak. Speak until fear begins losing its power. Do not wait until every word is available. Use the words you have and explain the words you forget. Do not wait until your sentences are flawless. Begin with a clear thought and improve the sentence as you move. Your goal is not to sound perfect. Your goal is to make your meaning reach another human being. That is real communication. That is real progress. That is the beginning of real fluency. One day you will enter a conversation that once would have frightened you. Someone will ask an unexpected question, and instead of freezing, your mind will choose a direction. A simple opening will appear. The main thought will lead to a reason. The reason will create an example. You may pause, but you will continue. You may make a mistake, but you will repair it. The conversation will move forward, and so will you. When it ends, you may suddenly realize that you were not translating every sentence. You were not controlling every word. You were simply expressing yourself. That moment will feel powerful, but it will not be magic. It will be the result of every small crossing you made when nobody was listening. Every minute of self-talk, every repeated answer, every recording, every corrected sentence, and every brave conversation will be standing behind that moment. So from this day forward, do not only study English. Use it. Use it to explain what you believe. Use it to describe what you have experienced. Use it to ask questions, share stories, express gratitude, solve problems, and create opportunities. Use it until English stops feeling like information stored inside your mind and begins feeling like a living voice moving through you. Your thoughts deserve more than silence. Your ideas deserve a road. Your voice deserves to be heard. The bridge is now in front of you. Take the first step, then take another. Cross it today, cross it tomorrow, and keep crossing it until the distance between your mind and fluent English becomes smaller than it has ever been. Thank you for listening to the English Thought Bridge. Unlock the missing bridge between your mind and fluent English speaking, published by English Mindset Academy. Before you leave, comment below, "My thoughts are becoming English." Let that sentence become your promise that you will no longer wait for perfect confidence before using your voice. Like this audiobook, subscribe to English Mindset Academy and return to it whenever your mind feels blocked or your confidence begins to fall. The bridge has been built. Now walk across it until English becomes part of who you are.